Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, it's my sidekick, Tom. How you doing, Tom?
Hello, friends. And let me just say, it's not, like, don't overstate that. Like, don't go too far with it, because the reality is, I'm not always here.
That's true. You're not always here. You are my sidekick. You're just not always here.
Oh.
I mean, look, Robin doesn't show up in every Batman comic. Of course, I understand. It's fine. All right. So also joining us this week, two people who I did not get to play actually at all, sadly, at Nash Con, but who are also at Nash Con with us, which is our main topic we're going to talk about tonight. And that is Tyler Emerson and Cale Thompson. Tyler, how you doing tonight, sir?
Yeah, they're good. Thanks for...
Awesome. Good to have you. Also joining us is Cale. Cale, how you doing tonight, brother?
Yo. Doing well. Thanks.
Very good. So, you gentlemen, you were a little choppy there, Tyler, by the way, so hopefully your
Yeah, I
internet
just froze.
clears up a
Hopefully
little.
I'm back.
You're back.
Sorry about that.
You're back. That's okay. We'll just have to make sure that have somebody stop streaming Netflix in the other room or whatever's going on. So that's okay. All right. So tonight, like I said, we're going to talk about some Nashcon. It was a week and a half back or whatnot, but we didn't get a chance to do a wrap-up show last week. Tom and I obviously did a wrap-up in the car, so I wanted to bring in multiple people to talk about it and their experiences. And I'm happy to have Tyler and Cale because they had two unusual armies given what was there. Tyler running Sylvaneth and Cale running Destruction, one of the few Destruction players.
Yeah. I'm kind of jealous. I have to be honest. Like, man, and you did well, Cale.
Yeah. Not to break into too quick, but it was actually Tyler, me, and the guy that won it. We were all in the neck and neck for the last game. We were all tied basically in points, and it was Destruction's still it's still viable, man.
Absolutely. So, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about. We're going to get into what we thought of the tournament. We're going to talk about the meta, what we think about the different armies, because obviously there may have been a bit of a theme with some stuff right now, and so we'll kind of touch on all of that. But of course, first we're going to start off with the news. So, Tom, what do we got for the news tonight?
So let's start at the top of the show with AOS stuff. That's
sure,
probably appropriate, right?
It seems like it.
So how about that rumor engine?
How about that rumor engine? Would you like a picture of it?
Sure.
Okay.
So if there was ever any question that GW watched our show, or at least the community folks do, this rumor they do, and this rumor engine is seriously the evidence of this. So we've been complaining for the last 3 weeks about literally like putting up clickbait images.
Yes.
Is it a cloak? Is it the fur on a cloak? What is it? And so this is clearly AOS.
Clearly, absolutely, as obvious.
AOS. The crossover, right? That's what this is.
Yes, this is the long-awaited crossover. This is the Marvel versus DC rumor engine. Yes. No, I mean it's a dead Primaris Marine. Yes. Or at least the remnants of his armor.
Yeah, and you can see the edge of the base right here. So my money and probably a toe, maybe right here on the right. On that
I think this is a toe.
Yeah, that's a toe
armor. Yeah.
Yeah. So my vote is Mortarion.
He seems to be the guess. Yes. It's like we know he's coming soon. His scythe has already been spoiled. He was in the art image.
He was pretty. Yeah.
So
he's gonna be a demon prince for me. Like that's gonna happen. That dude's getting converted.
Sure. Sure. So there you go. That's him. I love how they've started turning the painted images black and white.
Yeah.
So that way we don't have to notice how crappy these zoomed in images make the paint job look, even though in fact they look really good.
Yeah.
It's just you can't zoom in on any paint job.
How much do you think it'll be?
No.
How much do we think Mortarion will be if it's him?
Yeah.
How much was Robute?
Robute Gurman.
Was he in a 3-pack? Robute? Was he in one of those 3-packs?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't
Came
know.
with the other, like the other two Space Marine.
And they were like, were they $80 or 115? Which
75.
was the 75 for the 3. 60 for 1, maybe. I don't think they'll do a 3-pack, right?
Well, I think they did a 3-pack for. Yeah, I don't think so either. I think
because it was a part of that, like the Rising
Gathering Storm,
right?
Yeah, each chapter of the Gathering Storm had a 3-pack.
A triad, right?
Yeah, you had like Saint Celestine, then you had the Aeneid, and then you had the Rabute Gulamon.
So it's clear you just love that.
I do. He's got my favorite name ever. I'm so glad he's the one they brought back, so that we can all sit around and say Rabute Gulamon. Great.
So, I think it'll be a single. It'll probably be $60. That's, or what they'll do is maybe they'll have learned from this AOS starter that we're about to talk about, and maybe they'll bundle him with like 2 of the little minor heroes as well, 1 or 2 of them. That's another possibility.
I'll say he's standalone in $50. That's my goal.
You think standalone?
There's my number. Yep.
You have more faith than I do. Probably standalone 60 is what I'm saying.
All right. Cards are on the table. We can come back and reference this in like 2 weeks.
So, in fact, obviously, this is the non-AOS news item this week. So there's a reboxing coming of Corgus Cole and the Blood's Crater, and along with another box of just Vandus with scrolls and releasing. So $40 forthcoming. Yes, indeed, my friends. It has been 2.5 full months, 3 months since we've had Stormcast.
Well,
and it's too long. It's too long.
Sure. I'll give them the pass on this.
Really?
Yes, because
but,
this is
like we still don't have a Korgorath box. We still don't have a Fleshhound box.
Correct, but this is what's got to happen if you ever.
Where's my Karnak army?
You know where? Well, yeah,
it was at Nashcon actually.
Yeah. Look, if you ever want those Fleshhounds or those Korgoraths or the Bloodstoker and the Lord Relictor, the other guys you can't get individually right now, right?
Yeah.
Then go buy these.
Yeah.
Okay. Because like I understand or tweet at them, but like if you like this is them clearly testing the waters with the 2 mainstay characters, right? And if they do well, they'll put them out as individual boxes. But like this is the case where they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, right?
Sure.
Because if they just release them all individually, people would still be like, more corn and Stormcast, like you just did, right?
Oh, it's low hanging fruit. How can I not take a shot at that?
Sure.
I mean,
even though people have just been like, why can't I buy these individually? I want it. I don't want it. Gah!
I'm just bitter because we haven't seen a Nurgle release since End Times.
And hopefully that can continue. What are you talking about? 40K has a massive Nurgle release.
That's not a real AOS Nurgle release. And they've already said they're not using those Pox Rider, the Pox Walkers or whatever for AOS. So how about we get a real AOS release for Nurgle?
There is so many other things that should be higher priority than a Nurgle release.
Shut up.
I would like any of the Elf and Death players who are watching who want that release to tell Tom, to explain to Tom in the comments right now why you think he should not get his Nurgle release before you get your release, please. Thank you.
Because I need a week. That's the point. I need a week. I need a book and like 2 kits. That's all.
You're telling me there can't be death releases that are a week? That are 0 kits?
No, because there's so... No, I don't want to go into that. A lot of the line needs updated, and it's going to take more than a week.
There's plenty of ones that could be done as just a 1 week release.
Nope.
There's a local player in my my local scene who he's going to lose his mind if they come out with something with death that just throw him a bone, and him representing what I feel like is the entire base of death players around the world. Like, I mean, every week I feel like it's a therapy session with him where we have to spend at least 30 minutes talking about death. And it's okay, buddy. Hang in there. We'll get through this.
It's coming, man.
Is he ready to buy a new army? Because that's what's going to happen.
Yeah,
like that's the point. Because like that's the point is that like the reality is that when death finally drops, it's not going to be a repackage. Like even Soul Blight. Like if we get a Soul Blight thing, like it's not going to be like it's going to be a Kharadron Overlord situation.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to be 2 boxes in a book. You know, it's not Sylvaneth.
I think there are death armies you could do as 2 boxes in a book, and I think there are death armies that need entire just redesigns, completely new concepts, whatever, right? But there are other Flesh Eater courts hiding in death. That is what I will say. Like the spirit based army is already pretty darn close. You know, and like between the Karn Wraith and the Banshee and the Hex Wraiths and the Mortis Engine and the Spirit Hosts.
Say it.
That's it. That's what I was gonna say. Those 5.
The 280
The
points.
Black Coach. The Black Coach. Say the Black Coach. Come on, man.
I wasn't going to say a Black Coach because it can burn and die. I hate it. It's garbage. and I don't care that it happens to fall into that grouping. I just named 5 viable kits that are all current and relatively new, and they're all fine.
Yeah, no. Nope. Nope.
Units of Wraiths, it's very easy.
No, because some of those units aren't Death Haunt. That's the problem. Like some of those units are actually Death Mages.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Changing a keyword on something does require an entire release in new boxes, doesn't it? There's no way you could simply add a keyword to a scroll or something.
I think
they don't know where the PDFs went. They lost the originals. That's it. We're sunk now. These are all whatever they are forever.
They've printed the books. They've already shown reticence to actually change elements of War Scrolls.
Okay.
What do you guys think they're going to do with the Death Lords keyword? Do you think they're going to expand that out, like a couple boxes, or?
I hope not. No, I mean, I think it's such a hard faction. So we talked about this way back at the launch of AOS, and where do they go from here? Vince, you remember this conversation and how like death is a problem?
Well, first off, shout out to Paul Cunert who's watching. What's up, Paul? Good to see you. Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah.
But secondly, what are they going to do with it? Nothing. It's going to sit there and atrophy like Everchosen, right? Because it has no real purpose in being what it is. It's just like I don't foresee another Everchosen release happening ever. That's going to be Archeon, a Gaunt Summoner, and some Baron Guard and an unviable army for all time. But whatever, who cares? It's a pretty book. So hey, you got that.
It is. I have the limited edition. I have little metal counters.
Good on you.
No, but so. No, like, so the problem is that death is too mono faction. What I mean by that is like they're all like they started to go the right direction with the Flesh Eater books. They need some division because right now there's not sub factions. There's
you just say it's just death.
It's just
big
death.
pile of death, yeah.
Because everybody's under Nagash, and so the problem is that like they really need other players contesting power there, and they just don't have that. And so I think that if like one design direction is to just build out the armies underneath each of the Mortarks. So the like the Army of Blood, under the Mortark of Blood, Nephrata. And so you do like this vampire like new Lamnia theme. And then
I remember you talking about this.
Yeah, and then you'd have to do a build out under like whatever his face is.
Manfred.
Manfred. I don't want to talk about Manfred under Archon. So the idea would be that you would just build these sub factions. The problem is that everything's still unified. Like there's some division between Manfred and Nagash. There's some division between the Flesh Eater Courts and Nagash. But you really need other personalities and clashes and to make for interesting lore, and that's just not there. Like Kharadron Overlords, they're order, but they're not. They don't play nice. They play, it's all about profit. It's about all these other things. So there are these other motivations, and from a narrative standpoint, there's a problem that Death needs to solve. And they're teasing around, like they see the problem. Because Shadespire is an example of this. They see the problem, and so most of the lore things that have popped up out of Death have been people trying to buck Nagash.
Sure. Well, look,
anyways,
are we in the news section?
Yeah, we are in the news section. Sorry. Okay. So Korgus Cole and the Bloods Crater are dropping as 1 box, and then Vandus is dropping as 1 box. Each box is going to be $40 USD, and they're going to have their own new unique scrolls. So if for some reason you need more Bloods Craters, I can't imagine why. You can now pick them up out of this Korgus Cole box. $40 seems a bit steep, but I get it. It's not like those aren't available for like $15 on eBay. And then Thunder and Blood, it's going to be basically the remnants of the starter box that isn't Korgus Cole, the Blood's Crater, and Vandus. in a new box that the box itself turns into terrain, and it's at the getting started $85 price point. So 2 armies, $85. So much like Spire of Dawn, 2 armies, $85. You're picking up 2 more armies, $85. Stormcast and Bloodbound, they're in the new plastics. So the Stormcast are coming on gold sprues. The gold or blue? Gold
Yeah,
sprues.
gold, yeah.
They come on gold sprues. The Bloodbound come on red sprues. And so you're already like halfway to being unpainted. I don't know how you're going to prime those. Maybe you just paint right on top of the plastic. I don't know. Whatever. But those are dropping $85, 2 armies. Should be a good deal. Neat terrain piece, a fold-out mat. It's all kinds of fun. And then finally, the last news point is the Forgeworld points. We had some resolution.
Yeah, I mean, basically, nothing changed.
They rolled back the clock.
Except for they added the new units.
The new units are there. They rolled back the clock. So
everybody can calm down. There's no 280-point Morgul's flooding tables everywhere around the world.
Dude, you got to admit, 280-point Morgul's would have been amazing.
I wonder
like
if there
the
were
next
canceled
event,
Forge World orders.
Oh, man. Like, next event would have been just like half death armies. All just like washed in Nilic oxide and dry brushed. Like, that's what would have happened if they had been 200.
Start with 3 Morgul's. All right, what do I do for the rest of it? Like, that's bare mins.
Yeah, do I keep a pool of 300 points back to summon another one just in case?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or 320 back, so then, or you could double it for like a 40 block of skeletons. You know,
the destruction players are weeping at that. Their bravery 4 through 6 troops are just never hitting anything again
ever.
I think that's the reason David never bought a Morgul, because I refused to play him if he bought one.
You drew the line at the Necrosphinx, right? That's what it is. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, people being one shot. Just yeah. Fantastic. The other news, yeah, that's it, right? Did I miss something?
Nope, that's it. That's all the news.
Yeah, that is all the news. Wow, that's it.
I mean, obviously the big news is this weekend. Coming. Yeah, I mean,
they're doing some other update maybe this weekend. Like, I don't know, they have guns. I hear Nurgle's involved.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Oh. And the 40K players just discovered the reroll modifier.
God. We're not going to talk about that.
No.
We're not going to talk about it. If you want to do it's not being discussed on the show. If we want to talk about it, we'll do a special video.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the deal. Just going to say, I brought this up back in February.
Yes.
Suck it. I've been talking about this for 5 months. I'm glad everybody finally caught up with it.
That's fine, and it's fun that we all had witnesses to the fact that it was already pre-discussed at Nashcon. But yes, we're where everybody's brain hurt, and we all said, no, let's not think about that anymore, and just keep doing what we're doing. All right, so.
Yep. That was the conclusion of that dinner.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, screw this. Moving on.
No, it's true. It's true. You guys just don't like playing by the rules.
That's clearly what it is. All right. So let's move out of the news and turn to some pick of the week. So first, let's start with Cale, since he's just been running his mouth. God won't shut up.
Oh man,
Cale, what's your pick, buddy? What do you got? What do you want to share with everybody?
No, I'm gonna go last.
Oh, you're going last. Okay, all right. We'll go to Tyler then. Tyler, what do you got?
I got one. By the way, is my connection still crappy?
No, you're fine. You're coming through okay.
Better now? Okay, cool.
Yeah, don't move at all on your camera and make your camera like work harder to keep up with you. You must stand stock still.
So Battle Shock Bash coming up next weekend. St. Louis, Missouri. First time event. Lucius Meyer with Battle Shock podcast. Awesome guy. Same situation we had with Cale and David with Nashcon a couple weekends ago. You know, we need to get as many folks to come out and support it as possible so we can get 2 brand new events going into 2018, you know, in a really good place. Nice. So gatewayopen.com. It's going to be 5 rounds, 2,000 points, 500 point sideboard, think it's going to be fantastic. So yeah, hopefully get at least 30 folks to come out to it. So if you're in Illinois or anywhere in the Midwest, anywhere within an 8-hour striking distance, I drove 9 hours to get to Nashville, Tennessee. So make the trip out.
Gosh, I thought that I had to drive pretty far, but that's pretty crazy.
Our 8-hour drive that should have been 4.
Well, yeah, true, but okay. All right, Tom, what's your pick of the week, buddy?
I'm tempted to self-promote, but I'm not going to this week.
You do that every week, Tom.
I know. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to promote Vince. Vince did an announcement video for those of you guys that didn't see, and about the skirmish stuff that is forthcoming in a kind of a primer of the topics that are going to be considered. So check out Vince's channel about the modified system for Warhammer skirmish.
Awesome.
Yes, we've been doing a lot of work on it. We'd be doing more if I had more free time, but that's okay. It's moving along very well, and we should have something in the next couple weeks to put out a draft set of rules for everybody to evaluate and play with, and I am very excited about it. All right, Cale, we're back to you, buddy. What do you got?
Can I do a little throwback, or like?
You can share whatever you want, man.
Sure. So I just wanted to give a shout out to David Griffin, and I know we're talking about Nashcon, and we're trying to grow Nashcon, and I think next year we're going to try and shoot for around 50 people, and David did it all this year by himself basically, and Tom and Vince, y'all did a great job with the cards that we'll talk about here in a little bit. So I wanted to shout out for that and appreciate y'all, and let's grow it. Let's grow the South a little bit, so that way we can have some major tournaments in the South and the East, Northeast.
I agree, and really in the end, Nashville actually is a pretty convenient place to get to for a lot of people. It's really not too bad at all. It's in that general like probably 3 to 8, 9 hour drive for most people around the Midwest. So yeah, it's totally doable. And it was a great venue for it, like because of that.
And you're they're even only like 12 hours, 10 to 12 from like Houston and Dallas. So that's that's not a far drive, all things considered.
Right.
Think about like North Carolina probably only a 6-hour drive. So it's like Nashcon, like Nashville is actually really well positioned as an event just because of all those, and it has a major airport nearby. So
yeah, I was gonna say a lot of flights from Houston are direct flights to Nashville, so you can get
pretty cheap.
So yeah, but I mean it's great to have another event kind of growing. Maybe we'll get to Adepticon sooner or later.
You better. I just absolutely. It's you better make it happen. I believe in both of you. I want to see the fourth chair leg of the new 200-person tournament in Nashville eventually. That's what we're aiming at. Build it up 100%. Look, if my local Magic tournament that happens on like release day can do 100 people, we can get there eventually. All right, that's all I'm saying. Takes some time. We'll get there. Okay. My pick of the week is going to be for the most recent episode of the Mortal Realms podcast from Stone Monk and Davey, and they talked about coalescence. So it's episode 15. I'll throw the link down below. It's a great podcast. Obviously, coalescence happened here just this last weekend. There were narrative events. Lots of fun. It looked like all around. I enjoyed Relian's post the most because I think he won like his local thing, and his post was like, I narrative the hardest.
Yeah, it was so like I saw that and I about spit out my beer that evening because I was like, this is so Relian, and I completely agree with that sentiment.
Absolutely. If you're gonna narrative, you narrative harder than anybody else. Absolutely. So just looking at like watching Twitter over the weekend, looking at all the fantastic events going on, it's clear that there were a ton of people super engaged, and I thought that was awesome. So it's a very good sign, and I think that we want to see more of that. So Stone Monk has some nice discussion of the coalescence event, so check that out. That just came out last Friday, so pretty recent. All right. So all the links for all that will be down in the show notes. Check it out. Okay. So now let's turn to some hobby time. So, all right, Cale, what are you working on, buddy? What's going on?
Besides packing,
sure. Yeah. You're about to move. So it's probably not the most hobby friendly environment.
No, unfortunately, everything's packed up right now. My wife was yelling at me the other night. But working on the KOs right now. I've got about 20 Arcanauts built and primed, and then company, and doing a little bit of conversion as well. So I'm ready to start that army.
Oh, brilliant. I didn't know you were doing KO. That's cool.
Yeah. I bought it on release, and I was like, oh, I spent way too much money.
Surely not more than Tom.
No, definitely not. But I'm not reselling a lot either. But
Right.
the 60 company, I've only got 20 built and primed. But I'm fairly certain the company are going to be hilarious to run.
Hey, let's be clear. I'm just reselling bits, not the entire kit.
Sure. Yeah.
Just select bits that people really want.
Sure. Tom just looked like he was opening up a store when you looked at his shelf after that army purchase. Yeah. There you go.
There
Hold
it
on.
is.
Here,
So
we'll lock on Tom.
What's your guys' sense of how the KO are going to shake out in the meta? So let's say we got 3 tiers with like Mixed Chaos, Alex Harrison's South Coast GT winning Mixed Chaos at tier 1. Let's say Blades of Corn at tier 2, and then Iron Jaws at tier 3. Where are KO going to?
Whoa! I wouldn't put Iron Jaws at tier 3.
Oh my god.
Now,
well, they just took Best Destruction, so I don't know about that.
Yeah, and they took 2nd place at LVO. So let's be honest, like I think they're strong.
Sure.
Okay, maybe Flesh Eater Courts tier 3.
Yeah, okay. I'll take that. My estimate would be a strong tier 2.
That's exactly
a strong tier 2, like in the hands of a right player with good matchups, they're going to walk away with tournament wins.
Yeah.
But I don't think against a well-seasoned player that knows what's coming down the line, knows all their tricks, I think that they're going to struggle because people will be able to prepare appropriately for them. The other half of that, though, is that if they show up at events like what we just ran at Nashcon, event formats like that, they will excel at. Because if they can bring 2 lists, 2 very different KO lists, then they, because the problem is, one of the problems you're going to run in with the KO list is like certain scenarios aren't going to be compatible for, like their lists are all into certain tactics. That are really going to do well, and so if they can bring a list for each scenario, that'll change the ball game.
Okay.
So I think the 2 list events are going to be their bread and butter.
Are you guys building your list on the expectation that stacking will be rolled out in GHB2?
I am.
Don't get me started on that. So I mean, I have 3 chemists. I'm not gonna go. I just don't think everybody flipped their lid about stacking 4 chemist buffs, 5 chemist buffs, but
yeah,
there's much stronger options out there.
Okay.
I have 2 stacks or 3 stacks per.
So
I'm playing assuming it's going to get banned, but I have different opinions on it being banned.
So I'm playing assuming it's going to be banned, and I've also bought 3 chemists. And I think that you can reasonably run 3 chemists in a non-stacking list.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so like I'm still bringing 3 at 100 points a pop. There's just no hero that can bring that kind of heat. And I can assure you, even a navigator with their little like 3d6 dispel is not like I've played Zinch lists. Like I know better than that. Yeah, sure. What they're gonna get 2 or 3 dispels. They can like that's fine. They have a hero phase of 6 to 8 spells, which means they're gonna lose the first 3 spells, and then wipe the chemist off turn 1 with their other 5.
Yeah.
I just don't. Not chemist, navigator. Sorry.
Yeah, I figured you were talking about that. I just don't. I don't see what it brings to limiting the stacking. I mean, at Depticon we stacked. I mean, my whole list was built on stacking, and my list was stacking at Nashcon. I think you limit a lot of playability if you start banning all these things. And I mean, so I guess everybody ideally started flipping their lid when they saw the war scroll of the chemist. But even looking at that, I still don't see it being game breaking or game changing. Yeah, you could probably ruin somebody's day if they weren't prepped for it. But a good player or at a tournament, I just think you are going to limit a lot of options across the board, not just with the overlords, but with all factions.
Yeah, what I would say is this. I think that I totally lost my train of thought. I don't know.
Well,
He doesn't know what he thinks.
probably.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What were you just saying, Cale? You just dazzled me with your intellect.
I try. Usually I get the opposite effect. No. I think that there's just no real need to actually ban or rule out a stacking. I just don't see it. I don't see it.
So to clarify, that I don't think that we'll have banned stacking of same bonuses. I think it'll be banned stacking of same named abilities.
Yeah, and that's kind of
just to be clear, which is a much narrower banning. If that happens. But I don't imagine that they're going to let us stack 4 chemists onto a unit of 20 Thunderers.
Do you think it's broken?
Say what?
Do you think it's going to be that broken? I mean, that's a fair question. I think on paper it sounds absolutely broken, but is it really? Like, there's I think they're 5 wounds, 5 up save.
That's not the issue. The issue is the 200 plus light hook shots at 24 inches against heroes and. Yeah, and you can get that easy with Urbaz and 90 company. So you can get there.
Yeah,
is what I would say.
I guess what I'm saying is you still have line of sight to worry about. You still have range to worry about. You still have all these extrinsic factors that play in an actual game. So it looks amazing on paper. Yep. But how does it play out in a game? I don't think it's going to play out what everybody thinks it is. I have zero experience with them yet. So if I'm getting chewed out in the chat because I have no idea about, my bad. But I don't see it. I just don't.
I think here's what I like. Ultimately, here's my opinion on it. I think it would be play aroundable, sure. Yeah. But I think it just makes sense to stop same name stacking abilities, because in the end, why? Can you play around it? Sure you could. Mm-hmm. That's fine. But that being said, it sets up, like, the people most sensitive to having a bad time with this are the people are newer players. Yeah. Who don't know how to react to it. And so, and maybe the worst possible experience you could hand new players is somebody who's super excited. They just got their new Stormcast or their Khorne army, since those are the 2 starter armies, and both tend to be melee focused forces, right? Without the proper expansion.
And blowing off the table top of one.
Set up their little figures and they're so happy, and they're like, cool, how do we play this game? And the person's like, well, you set up your forces. Now, I had less drops than you, so I get to decide who goes first. So I'm going to go ahead and take the first turn. Now, here comes my airship. It's going to be 9 inches away from you. And out pop 20 of these guys and 3 chemists. They're all going to apply their buffs. Now I'm going to shoot you 120 times. Every hero you have and every unit you have of value is dead. You get to keep your liberators. Go ahead and attack with them. Oh, you didn't do anything? Oh, okay. Well, now I'm going to shoot them off the table. Now those are dead. I win the game. You should go buy a new army. Okay, thanks, bye. That is the worst. If you don't think that's what's going to happen, you're out of your mind. It's what will happen.
I guarantee you that's going to happen. But at the same time, you need to. That's why we play. That's why you have an opponent, and so you're playing video game, because you're actually having a good time with an opponent. So at that token, you know, how often is that person going to get played after that? I mean, I wouldn't play that person.
Well, the key though is not we're talking tournament list here. We're talking. You know, the question was in the tier system, which is a competitive environment. Where are they going to sit? Because the reality is this: I would never play my list that I take to tournaments, that Nurgle list. I would never play that in a friendly game.
Yeah,
never. Absolutely. I would never do that, because nobody's gonna have fun.
Mm-hmm.
But that,
yeah. I mean, my argument, Cale, would be maybe a lot that guy will get games if that's the natural meta of that place, right?
Yeah.
Where everybody else does know how to handle his tricks, right? And he can't run that army because he keeps getting his face smacked. Not in the real world, just because, you know, he drops it and people know the counters and hide their heroes and do all this stuff. And then he tries to play his tricks and he gets face rolled. But then he's like, oh, here's the new guy who doesn't know how. My point is not that, it's not that you couldn't play around. It's just why. Do we need it? Does the game need it? No. So why it's a simple rule. It makes sense in the scheme of the rule of ones. It doesn't curb bad behavior. No, you can bad play people who want to be bad faith players will always be douchebags, period, end story. You can't write rules to stop them, and you shouldn't try.
You can't. I assure you, you cannot write rules to stop the douchebag.
Exactly. Tom is a douchebag. He will always find a way. So I'm not trying to stop that. I'm just saying, like, when there's super low-hanging fruit that's almost encouraging people to have a bad time, let's not do that.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's my opinion.
This is, by the way, why Vince keeps me around to do development for him, because he knows that I'm going to take whatever he writes and break it. And then we'll cut it off in the pass before it actually hits the table, from a rules standpoint.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So we were talking hobby time. Tom, what are you working on? This is all right. I love the show already. This is going to be the show of tangents, and I'm all about it. This is great.
I am occasionally gluing bark onto a table. See, there's my table, and I'm gluing bark. Lots of bark. And then what else am I doing? I made a video this week. That happened.
A really good video. That was awesome.
Thanks. Made some content. What else did I do? I primed
piling in tactics.
Yeah, on piling in tactics. You can find it on my channel. You probably won't be able to find my channel, but whatever. Good luck.
It's under your name. It's not hard to find.
And then I primed a chemist. I primed my first chemist. And he's base coated silver. And I bought a bunch of stuff. Like I got the Graveyard Bones set that showed up this week. I finally completed my terrain set. Boom! That's right.
Oh, did you get your Temple of Skulls?
I did. I did. Got it this last week. Super excited. It's going to be one of the centerpieces in the middle of my Ruined Keep, my Chaos Dreadhold. It'll be a good piece that'll aesthetically match it. I realize that with all the spikes on the pillars, it could be painted very similar to the Dreadhold itself, and so it'd look very at home in the middle of a ruined Dreadhold. So super excited about that. Yeah. So just doing some knick-knack stuff, kind of gluing and just kind of dinking around. No major painting, but a number of hobby projects I've been working on.
All right. Tyler, what about you, sir? What have you been working on?
Yeah, so real quickly, shout out to, it reminds me, Ben Curry. He's, of course, putting together a ton of terrain for his Modern Glory extravaganza that's going to be happening later this year. And he's taken the Ben Johnson approach. So Ben become a little famous for creating these terrain pieces where there's not a lot of three-dimensional terrain. They're he'll take a Citadel wood base and then he'll put a lot of different bits on them. So they have incredible variety and a really efficient way to get a lot of terrain pieces for a 6x4 board. So Ben has been taking, the Mage-Wrath Throne and some of the older pieces, and of course the Sigmarite Mausoleum, I think it's called.
Yep.
And they look fantastic. So they're up on his Bad Dice on Instagram. Yep. Maybe we can throw a link.
Yeah, they look good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll put a link in there.
So finally, after, I think early April was the last time I did a freaking podcast. I actually got a podcast out this week. So that was
there.
Nice.
You go.
We should have another one coming out in maybe a couple of days. We'll see. On a bit of a kind of State of the Union, just sharing some personal thoughts. We're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of AOS. So, what are some of the incredible positives of the last year in particular? And then some thoughts on what I think are maybe some potential issues right now. I'd love to see some improvement in. So that should be out in hopefully a couple of days.
Very nice. Yeah, we are darn close. I will be looking forward to that. I'll be interested to hear your opinions on kind of the current state, because I imagine we'll have to do a 2-year anniversary show.
We will.
That will have to happen.
I'm traveling that week, but we can figure it out.
Update to the Rolling Bad podcast, guys. The part 2 of our podcast is still scheduled to never come out.
Nice.
So we're on track with that one right now.
Awesome. For myself, my own hobby time, I'm working on my unit entry for Gen Con, and that is a Malifaux crew that I've been wanting to paint for a while, that I've had on my shelf since last Gen Con. It's this one, the Queen's Return, which would also, by the way, be a great Sylvaneth kit. If you're ever interested in some interesting alternate Sylvaneth models, like all of those make really good tree revenants. You see these 4 characters here.
Oh yeah.
So like this is what they look like in reality. So here's one of the girls and the girl with the whips and stuff. They make great like tree revenants, stuff like that. So
do they happen to have anything for tree chem?
Yes, they do. But they'd be really expensive. I don't have it within hand, but like there's the effigy for that group is like a big giant plant monster thing with a super long face. It's a really, really awesome. It's kind of like a weird mix between, I don't know, like Swamp Thing and a Kurnoth Hunter face, honestly.
Okay.
But so like instead of being tree based, think of it as like plant based, like Shambling Mound type of thing, right? He's a really awesome model. He's over there, so I can't grab him, but he's, it's a fairly expensive kit, and if you wanted enough to actually take that, you'd be in for a significant pound. But it's an awesome model. And then the one I'm actually working on right now is Titania, the leader of the crew. So
sweet.
That's awesome.
So there you go.
Nice.
Yeah. And see, like, why buy trees when you can make trees? That's the other thing I've got. So because they'll all be sitting in a forest thing, so I had to make trees.
Awesome.
All right, so that's what I'm working on. And there's one more model I have to get done for this competition, and I'm very excited about it. And I'm going to, and it will be the first. I'm trying to think if I'm about to lie. I'm going to say it's the first 40K model I've bought in a long, long, long time. So I find it well timed.
Yeah, that is a lie. Dude, what about your sister battle? Like your gun?
That's true. I did. Yeah, that's true. The Canonist Viridian. Yeah.
Boom!
You got. That's why I was trying to think if I was
10
lying.
seconds.
No, that's fair. You got me. Okay. Totally fair. I forgot about her. That's why I sat there and tried to think if I was lying, if I had purchased something else for competition. But I want to pick up a Knight Titan because one of the divisions in the competition is Ordnance, and I really think Knight Titans look fun. I've never got to paint one ever, and I think they're an awesome thing to paint. And so what I would ask of everybody watching this is if you have, I'm looking for inspiration on images, especially if you know anybody who's done a Sisters of Battle themed Knight Titan, or you have links to it. Please give me some links to Sisters of Battle themed Knight Titans, especially with freehand and painting on them and stuff like that. Or any Knight Titans with significant freehand. I know of a couple, and I've certainly done a lot of research, but please share if you see anything. I'll be picking him up to probably, I'm on the road all of next week, but when I get back, he'll be my big project next week. So
when you say Sisters of Battle Knight Titan, what are some of the highlights on what you're thinking?
Well, most of them that I've seen are in red and black, but I know there are a couple floating around where people have done like really big, significant freehand on like the shoulders and the sort of, the center leg plates and stuff in the like Sisters of Battle theme. So, but I'm not having a huge amount of luck in my search. So I'm sourcing it out there. Like anybody, if you just great freehand #1 on Knight Titans, and #2 specifically any Sisters of Battle conversion at all. Like interesting changes to add more fleur-de-lis or weapon setups or stuff like that. I don't particularly care if I ever get to use this in a game. I mean, I'm buying it and painting it for competition. If it ever had a use in the game, that'd be great. As when they come out with Sisters of Battle, I will buy the army. But so there you go. That's the conversion I'd like to do. So
nice. Well, I've heard that 3 Knight Titans are going to be a thing in new 40K. That's been a common comment on some of the podcasts.
That 3 of them can be a thing.
All if I could paint three robots, 3 mechs, and have a 40K army. Oh, that is Tyler. You should not have told me that.
All right, we're doing our good work. We'll get him eventually. All right, so let's move to talk to our feature segment here. So, like we said, Nashcon was a week and a half ago, and I wanted to, Tom and I recapped some in the car on the way back, which worked decent enough, despite the crappy internet in the backwoods of Tennessee and Kentucky.
Yep.
So I thought we would, but I wanted to talk to both of you gentlemen about it. So I prepped up some topics, sent them over to you, So let's just start at the beginning. And I thought we'd start with sort of your general feelings on the tournament. Obviously, both of you did very well. Like you mentioned, you were both in contention for, sort of the top spot, literally right up until the end. So just kind of overall, how'd you like the tournament? How'd you find it? All those sorts of things. So Cale, I'll have you start us out, buddy.
Sure. It was good. The good flow. There was a good flow. Very similar to Adepticon, which is kind of something that Adepticon's the only other tournament I've been to, large scale tournament, and so that was nice to have. It was in a hotel. We had food for us. I had beer. There's a solid number of players. I think we had 29 or 30. And the competitive lists were there. Like,
the heat. People brought the heat.
Yeah.
I mean, they were just filthy. So yeah, overall the tournament to me was great. All the guys that came down were awesome. We had a guy from New Jersey come down.
Yep.
It was kind of, it's exactly what I wanted in a tournament, especially like a medium scale tournament. There wasn't any no hate. There was, or I say hate, but everybody just meshed really well. We started off in like little groups at the beginning on the first day, but on the second day, pretty much everybody hung out in one centralized group, just hanging out, chit-chatting, talking, and talking smack, etc. So it was great. I loved it. I'm a little biased because, but I thought it was an excellent tournament. It's got so much room to improve, like on a good level. Like see it growing. So I think I can't talk enough about it. It's great.
I agree. I mean, certainly I concur with all of that. What about you, Tyler? What'd you think, buddy?
Yeah, so pretty much if every tournament that we could have in the community could be even close to what Nashcon was, I think pretty much every person who plays AOS needs to get their ass to a tournament.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was that good. I haven't gone to many, like Cale, I've actually only gone to Adepticon and now Nashcon. I'm hoping to get to a lot more tournaments. So I don't have a lot of large base to reference, and I unfortunately did not get to play in the 2,000 points at Adepticon this year. Some work crap came up, but it was outstanding. I mean, just the people, the venue, the location, there were some strong lists there, but it was a nice split. So we had like 28, 29 players. It seemed like I was looking at the list again. It looked to me like about half of them were pretty competitive, and the other half were, not as competitive. There were different design choices that went into informing the list.
Yep.
And that seemed like a really nice split.
Yeah. I mean, somebody brought like a Fate Master as his general. Just,
right.
Yeah. I like
ridiculous garbage.
What was that dude thinking?
Yeah.
Oh man.
There were a bunch of Iron Jaws lists there. I don't know, Tom and I, maybe we need to hash it out on the relative power level of Iron Jaws. I think I disagree about their status as a tier 2, but we can talk about that another time. We'll
talk about it in a minute.
Well, you're not Iron Jaws. Anybody who's got a Frost Lord or
you're a mixed Iron Jaws, but I mean a mix. Yeah, but you're mixed destruction, but not normal mixed destruction.
That's true.
Normal mixed destruction is like 3 big zombie monsters with snowballs and
Cannon Rock or 60 Grots.
Yeah.
With Fnatic.
60,000 Rock with arrows and
yeah, and that's not what you brought.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, I mean, I don't want to sound incredibly hyperbolic. Would honestly, so to kind of critique it a little bit, we were a little cramped.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think David's very aware of that.
Yeah.
It was a little difficult to move around, but he had certain limitations that he had to work with for the first year. So I'm sure that'll get cleaned up next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
very accurate on that. Very accurate.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, I mean, that was the main thing that I thought. Yeah, I had some other critiques, but I don't think they were that significant, to be honest. That was the main one. On the whole, if I thought if there were real issues with it, I would say so. But it was truly amazing, I thought.
What'd you got? What y'all think of the prizes? Y'all think that was pretty cool?
What were the prizes? Oh, the swords.
The swords and then all that kind of stuff, because I think David blew it out of the water on that.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, I thought. Yeah. Go ahead, Tom.
I was just saying they were different. And what I mean by that, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but like I got to thinking about it, and I was like, if I win one of these, like in the off chance that I do, where am I gonna put this?
Yeah.
Like, because it's not like a trophy, you know, like I can't just put it on my trophy shelf. I have to hang it somewhere, you know, like, and so, which is not a bad thing. You can't just
put it on the shelf next to that like T-ball trophy he has for like 4th place all city runner-ups.
Hey, I have a
the other trophy he has.
I have a holy wars over here.
Sure.
Yeah. Needless to say, but I was just thinking, like, so that was my only critique. Is like, man, if I win a great sword, one, how are we gonna fit it in the car? And two,
there was no way. There was no way. Like, thank God you didn't do it well. I'm so glad that I managed to recap you out of being competitive by robbing you of that scheme, because that sword, it was not going to fit in the car.
It would have pushed me to the top. You know that, right? Like, looking at the numbers, like, I would have been competitive. Thanks, Vince. It's your fault. It really is.
Look, I was the scheme breaker.
You were.
Because I took 10 points of Matt away.
Yeah. That's true. Thanks, douche. But no, it was good. It was good. So I like the sword.
So do you think it would be something you'd prefer as a trophy, or do you think you'd rather have a trophy?
No, let me just say this. I'm glad it's not a pin.
There's a special jibe there. That's for
that's for Vince. That's for Vince.
It's an inside joke, yes.
It's a trophy, and that's what I would say. Like, I'm glad it's a trophy. I don't like. Yeah, a sword is fine. Yeah,
I don't know where that you. Okay, so let's. I'm gonna stay on E for a second here. You can see it. You see it right there. That's the back
on
side
top
of
the case.
On top of my case.
Yes.
This is the only problem. I don't like. I've got to like go buy a thing to make it
hanger.
Up. Like, I got to go buy a hanger of some kind. That's the only problem. So what once we get up to, like, 50 people, we got to get David to spring for like a little thing to set it on too, like a little thing to set the sword on or to hang it on. Like, you know what I'm talking about? It's just little, like, the little picture framey racky things.
Yes,
one of those. That's
or something like you can mount to the wall.
Well, generally those little picture framey racky, the split things, you can also mount them on the wall, or they can stand. So there you go. But no, it's awesome. It's completely unique and was sweet as all get out. Yes, and was fantastic. So
I think that's another area, room for improvement is the prizes. We did have a bit of a, like, sort of both ends of the spectrum. We had these badass swords, and then maybe some of the other prizes. But again, it's the first time, so there's always opportunity to do more. I think some of us who attended, like it was awesome. Vince, at the end of it, he volunteered to just remind him to do it, as I'm sure he will. He's going to paint, I think, a miniature for somebody. Maybe he said 1,000 points of Age of Sigmar. Did you say
1,000 points? What? You're out of your mind.
That's like.
No, I said I will paint something for him to give away in some form as a prize. I'll do a display quality, but still gaming miniature, like something that can be used.
Okay. But getting some more sponsors, getting some contributions from the community, we can do a lot more next year.
Yeah, and like some of that just needs to be crowdsourcing. I honestly think. Yep.
I agree. So, but overall, I mean, solid A, like, no doubt.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
Totally.
All right. Okay. So here was it. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was one that, Tom and I have probably already recounted this in our previous video. So really, I'm interested in the two of you, and that is your sort of best moment, your biggest heartbreak moment. So your highest high and your lowest low. I'm always interested in the apex and the nadir, right? Because that's, I think, define your feeling on the tournament overall. So we'll stick to the same order. So Cale, take us up first, buddy. What was your peak? What was the mountaintop? And then what was the lowest valley?
Oh man, the mountaintop was definitely game one. I don't think I sweat as much in game one or any of my other 4 games than game one. I was going against Cool Patrol, and literally my scheme I chose of all the schemes to pick. I put my hardest schemes first, and so my scheme was I had to get my Stonehorn. I don't know why I did this one, and my Ragnarok killed.
Oh my God.
And so I was like, well, he had the zombie dragon, and I was like, that thing dishes out damage like nobody's business. So I was like, I'll send in my spider, and it'll die first. I'll blink off some wounds, and then I'll occupy with the Stonehorn. So I was like, awesome, got it. So he makes me go first, and then so I move my stuff up, get myself ready because I see the dragon staring me down. I was like, all right, come on, it's right here. The spider's right here, and what happens? He sends the dragon all the way through into my goblins, which were it wrapped my goblins, and then it was my brutes. And so I was like, okay, I really wanted you to send it into my spider. I was trying to set up a nice juicy target for the spider here. Instead, you chose my flanks, what I didn't want you to do. So long story short, I killed the dragon after a couple turns with the brutes, but I'm still left with my spider and my Stonehorn untouched. I'm like, well, crap. I can't get my scheme now. There's nothing that's going to kill him. And so,
I'm sorry. That's so terrible.
And so he played it great. And so what I found out is his scheme was he had to get the zombie dragon killed. So, no. So what happened is, so everything's tied up in the middle. I'm on my backboard edge, still in my 12-inch deployment zone, basically. And he is Ghoul Patrol, so everything is swamped to me. And so I think it's like turn 3 or turn 4. I had everything down. I had Crypt Horrors down to 1, and the what is the other big zombie? The other one, Crypt Horrors.
Crypt players, yeah.
He had huge units of those. I think 9 with 1 and 6 with the other. I can't remember which ones. And so I had both of them down to 1. And I was like, all right, I am so screwed if he gets this turn on turn 4 because he's just going to bring back more. And I'm still on my backboard edge. And what was game 1? It was the game where we had to score. You have to have 4.
Yeah, Blood and Glory.
Blood and Glory. And so I don't see any way of me getting a win. I'm still on my backboard edge. I got the initiative, which is, thank goodness, basically plowed through his entire, at that point, he didn't have much left, but I plowed through everything. And I was like, oh man, so I tabled him. And so David ruled it as, well, can you get to your objective? Can you get to the back 2 objectives? If you can, you get the major victory. If you don't, it's going to be a draw or a minor win, because I had 2 and he had 0. Like, so it comes down to the dice. And so I basically had to roll a 6 on the destruction move for the brutes, and then I had to roll like a really high run. I can't remember if it was 4 or 5 with the brutes on one side. I got both of those, and then on the other side, I had to roll really high with the Stonehorn, and I got that one. I was like, I can't believe I just got this, being on my backboard edge.
Wow.
Wow.
So that was a highlight. He played it really well. He kept me on the backboard edge. It's just he couldn't. I had too much stuff for him to mow down. And then was that all you asked me for? Was my highlight?
The highs and lows.
That was your highlights. So what was your lowest low? That's a good. I do love a good, like, everything's got to go this way. It went that way. That's a good moment. All right. So what was that was your high? What was your low?
Oh, I hate you, Jacob Burleson. So game 5 game 5 was playing Jacob, and he and I are clubmates, and we've been practicing. And a little bit about his list. He was running Corn, and he was running 3 units of 5 Wrathmongers. Screw that unit, I swear to God. So what happened is last game. How do I even get? Okay, so he flanked me with Blood Warriors, followed by Wrathmongers, of course, and then Skull Reapers behind. Both sides were 5-mans, I believe. Yeah, 5-man Warriors, 5-man Reapers, 5-man Wrathmongers. And so I was like, all right, he got up on turn 1, and he scored the 2 objectives. The 5th game, can y'all refresh me? I forgot what the 5th game was.
Yeah, Border War.
Border War. So he got 2 points right off the bat. I had, so I was playing down already. So what he did is he took the 2 points on the flanks, left open the middle. But when he measured everything, he's like, dude, you're not going to get the middle. There's just like, we looked at it, and I was like, I had to roll 6 on the destruction move, and I had to roll a 12 on my charge with the Stonehorn. I was like, that's not happening. All right. So anyway, my turn. I was like, well, I'm not sending the Stonehorn against the right flank, because it was just I couldn't maneuver that way. So on the left flank, I was like, I can get in there. There's terrain blocking me, but I think I can do it. So I rolled a 6 on the destruction move, so that helped. And then I went through in my movement. I was like, all right, I'm gonna bring him over here. Well, the terrain blocked at the base, so I couldn't move him there.
Oh.
Ooh.
Well, YOLO. All right, Stonehorn, straight up the middle. So I moved him up, and then I was like, come to the charge range, and I rolled two 6s on the charge.
Nice.
The Stonehorn gets into all the meat, the juicy units, or the juicy heroes. So I killed the banner on turn 1, which was nice, and then he just proceeded to just destroy the entire middle. But I was still down in points because he had the 2 flanks.
Yeah.
Long story short, I chewed through the right side of my flank finally with the spider. She put out 20 mortal wounds. I rolled like a boss. So she had Battle Brew on that round.
Of course she did.
Of course she did. And then she had Bellowing Tyrant, so +1, +3 to hit. So you're looking at that. And also had Damn Terrain. So
that was the show last week. Yep.
Yeah. And so she put out 20 mortal wounds that round. So she just ate the entire.
I like how you just casually say that. She put out 20 mortal wounds.
Right. No big deal. No big deal.
Let me point out that is the average mortal wound output of 3 units of 9 Skyfires. Like, let me just throw that just casual fact out.
Of 27 Skyfires. That's quite
27 Skyfires.
I'm just saying.
That's the average number.
Yeah. You equaled that with, a spider.
280 points.
A highly buffed spider, but a spider.
I was going to say, hey, I have to get
you can have 3 of those folks in an army and not break a sweat.
Well,
and
you
they
can't,
each come
you
with
can't
a wizard.
buff all of them the same, correct? But
you're right.
So I chewed through that whole right side. Good to go. Left side, I left it alone. I didn't even want to worry about it. I wanted the back 4 point, and I wanted the right side 2 points. So the lowlights. Where to start? So turn 5, or the last turn, it was the last turn of the tournament for us. I had my brutes. I'd gotten to the backfield, and my brutes were scoring. Now he had a 5-man unit of Wrathmongers also scoring. So right now we were looking at, he had 5 units within the 6-inch bubble, and I had 4 goblins, the Stonehorn, and I had 4 brutes that were scoring. So I had it. I was like, cool, I got it. I had a WTF moment, man. So I decided to go big or go home, and I attacked with the spider first for God knows what reason. I killed a relevant object. So he swung with his freaking Wrathmongers and killed the Stonehorn. It had 3 wounds left. So but it had more. It had Mystic Shield, so I kind of expected it to kind of survive, but it didn't. So he killed that, and then I was like, okay, well I have 4 goblins, so I've got 4 there. For whatever reason, let's backtrack a little bit. I decided to charge the brutes into the Wrathmongers. I was like, I got this. Then I moved everything, and I was like, actually, do you care if I put them back to where they were? Because I don't want your Wrathmongers. I didn't want the Stonehorn to attack the brutes and wipe the brute unit out. So actually, I'm gonna put them back. Well, when I put them back, it's important to pay attention where you put things back.
Oh no!
So I put them back, and then I left them out of the scoring range.
Wow.
So they were in scoring range, and then Jacob let him go back, and he put him back in the wrong place.
This was for the win, because I was still down by 2 points, and I needed these 2 points to propel back up 1 point. So this was for the win. Need I say? So I left 1 brute in range, and then I had the 4 goblins, so that equaled 5 and 5, and so it was contested, and he earned it. I made the stupid mistakes. There was also another time on the left side. I was actually contesting the left side for 1 turn with the goblins, and then I piled him in. Scenery's blocking, but I was still in combat. But there was a dividing wall, so I was like, I had the brilliant idea of why I'm contesting him. but I had the brilliant idea to retreat that unit of goblins. I'm not sure why. So I retreated the testing unit, so he got those 2 points back. So all along, the game was mine to lose, and I lost it. And he played a hell of a game. Like, he just aced it on tactic. And I had it, and I let it go. And so there's nothing more defeating when you realize that you missed when you're half inch out of scoring range with another.
Amen.
Oh man.
Yep.
But
did you have your scheme?
It was a good game. Do what?
Did you get your scheme?
Yeah, I got my scheme. So
man.
I would have had a full victory. So what I had
Yeah.
What I would have needed for Matt to have done is lost his scheme, but he didn't.
Well, I ensured that didn't happen.
No, it did not. so anyway, Matt would have still won, and but it would have been that was my letdown, and happens. But hey, the Ragnarok killed that freaking what was it? What's the little wimpy whip guy? The
Bloodstoker.
Hate that Bloodstoker though. It was worth it.
All right, Tyler, what about you, buddy? What's your high point and low point?
Oh man. Okay, so I've got sort of two related of each, or at least the second one. The high point two are related. Both low and high, of course, involve Durthu, as one would expect, playing Sylvaneth, that big idiot. So let's see, the low point. No, start with the high point. I was going up against Chris Bingham, incredible player, had a really competitive, very powerful Tzeentch list that he brought with the Bellwind and rotating models out, and casting 4 mortal wound dealing spells at 36-inch range, and he was kind to only do 9 Skyfires and his Angor Shaman, so easy pickings. Blew the hell out of him. Yeah, with your nonsense Nurgle crap. And blew the hell out of me because I was, as Cale knows, I came to the tournament to go YOLO Sylvaneth, going aggro Sylvaneth the entire time. At winning this tournament. And David, Chris threw everything that he had in round 3 into Durthu, who he allowed to get within a ½ inch of the 6-inch bubble for Gift from the Heavens because he misunderstood the rule.
Oh.
He pulled his book out in round 2. I was like, what? What's going on? He's spending a lot of time with his head in his book. So, and he couldn't do it. Durthu survived with 3 wounds. He had multiple mortal wound spells that he failed to cast. He threw a Lord of Change in. He put a lot of shooting into him, and he just couldn't bring him down. So that was the high point. The other high point was actually beating Tom. I gotta say,
no, fair enough. No,
if I did not do anything else in the tournament, going into that game, I thought I was going to get whooped. But as he picked up on, it all started with Adepticon, where we chatted for a good 15 minutes, and he spilled his guts on his list.
Well, and you had read my entire blog. You watched his weaknesses. 2 games. You watched, so you knew how everything worked.
I put on my friendliest face.
Yeah. No, it's fine. No, I like telling people. I like helping people talking game. Yeah.
I do appreciate, in all seriousness, I do really appreciate that about you. You tend to be an open book, which is awesome. So that was good. And surprising you with Household.
Yeah, I knew it. I just, there were 100 other variables that I was thinking about, and I just forgot about the no retreat. Everybody focuses on the actual gnarl route and forgets that one no retreat rule that's sitting in Household. And sure enough,
amazing.
It caught the Chaos Warriors by surprise.
Yeah.
And I made some bad moves. You played very smartly, you played very well, and I made a couple very bad engagements. I should have swung the Chaos Warriors around farther on that initial charge, and there's a lot of things that I could have done different. But you played a great game. Which, by the way, let me just point out, I just gave you we wrapped up at the end.
Yeah.
It dawned on me that had I killed, you'd only actually wiped out 2 units of Marauders.
Oh.
So if I had killed your Dryads, which I would have had a shot to do with what was still there, we would have drawn. And so instead of minor victory, we would have drawn. But I just didn't think, I was like, I can't kill 120 points, whatever. And we just moved on. And it didn't dawn on me that the Dryads are actually 120 points.
I can't remember, not to debate the point, I can't remember if I was in a position to try to kill something else if we played another round, but neither here nor there.
Yeah.
I believe you. Everybody else can kill 10 Dryads pretty easily, so I believe you.
Well, hey, my list has to work for it, but I think I could have gotten it done.
Yeah.
So, no, it was a great game. You're right. It was fantastic.
So those were the high points.
Yep.
Low points, again, involving Durthu. And so that last game against Matt, similar to Cale, what you did in your last game. I was playing aggressive the entire time, which got lucky to be on that last table. I really had no business being on that last table for a few reasons. I should have lost that game against Chris. You made a couple of mistakes. Anyway, there's a few things where I should not have been up there in the first place. But I was. I think even Matt would say, you look at the list that we had, I probably had the advantage in the list. I played the aggressive the entire tournament, and it was working out in my favor. And in the last game, I did what I had been doing. I threw Durthu forward. So we were Border War. He had 10 Protectors, bubble wrapping about 6 heroes, and then 4 Fulminators, and his 3 units of minimum MSU Liberators were up in the Celestial Realm. And I got in my head and got paranoid about those Liberators come crashing down into my objective. So I only threw Durthu and the Ancient Forge to go YOLO. I told you to send it all. Oh my God. I did initially, and then I freaking took it back, and they stayed back there in my deployment zone and didn't do jack shit the entire game. And the 4 Fulminators just ran ramshot through my left deployment zone and killed the game for me. Obviously, they don't have to get in there, but they just got to be in his face to threaten his 4 points.
Yep.
So that lost me the game there. I mean, there were a couple of ways I could have swung it back. He got both priority rolls, but that was painful. So that was the worst moment. But then Durthu actually got in. He got a 9-inch charge off, and I got a 6 on the plus D3 attacks going into the 10 Protectors. 6 attacks coming in, 5 hits, and Mr. Hit and Miss does what he does.
Oh no!
2 1s and 2 2s, only getting 1 wound roll in. He's on a 5-up save, so I could have easily gotten 12 to 18 damage. Won the game alone, right there.
Those Protectors off the table.
Jesus. Oh. So that was Durthu doing what he does.
Yeah.
He's ever a giant letdown. Let me tell you what. That guy is he lives to be a letdown. You look at those numbers and you're like, oh my God, he's so good. And then you play him and you're like, oh my God, I'm so angry at you. Why aren't you better? You're supposed to be better.
So a lore master arrived in the mail last week.
Yeah. That's the right answer to Durthu. Yes.
I think I've got a list in mind. Good. Yeah, that will work with my expectations for GH 2 points with Kurnoth going up and a decent balance. So
that
nice. I like how you responded to the tournament by going, all right, this model's awesome. It has an obvious weakness. Yeah. I can make this list harder. Right, I can do better.
Yeah, that's my type of response. I'm like, oh.
I responded to the tournament where I had my Chaos Lord on Manticore. I used him like 1 game, and he just got blown up and died because he's terrible. And I was like, you know what? I needed another one of those. So I bought another one of those guys. That's my response. I'm like, I really like that model. He didn't do anything, and he's terrible, but I need to play more of him.
Yeah. Now, let me point out, I had this conversation with Vince, and I walked through about 3 to 4 very clear ways that he could actually like harden his list to be like high tier 2. Like he could actually be a hyper, like fairly competitive if well piloted. Then he's like, nah, I don't want to paint those models. Like that was the response.
Look, the biggest breakthrough was when I realized I've got like 30 painted gore all in a Tzeentch theme that are actually, nicely enough. And I was like, great, those are my Marauders. There you go.
Oh, yeah, and that was the discussion. So like, and that would actually.
I'm not painting Marauders. Let me just be very clear about that. It's not happening.
But that would actually go very well. That would actually go very well, is what I would say. That would go a long way. It would go a real long way to hardening your list.
Sure. I mean, I responded, but like this last weekend, I had a nice game, and I ran an all beast men type list where I had like a group of Zangor and their dude and like the Ogre leading them, and then a group of Beastmen and their Beastmen leaders, and then a Doombull and regular Gore. I went for the full suite of all Beastmen related things. Bird Beastmen and normal Beastmen and cow Beastmen. That's my response. That's how I roll. That army was terrible. All right. So very good. Let's continue. So, you know, we already talked about kind of, I think everybody knows what you played. So rather than, you know, my third point is gonna be what you played and how you feel you did overall, but I think we've touched on both of those. So instead, I'm gonna change the question on you. Oh, it's ambush journalism. All right. So instead, I want to ask you your MVP unit and why. Like what of all of them. So who was your most valuable player? What was the unit you had that did this? And Tom, I want you can chip in on this one too, since we did not answer this question. We kind of both talked about the other ones in our normal wrap up. So Cale, kick it off, buddy. What was your MVP? One unit. Gotta pick one.
That's tough. Well, I guess it's not a shocker. I'm gonna have to go with Stonehorn. It's just too durable. Yeah. It does too much damage, and it's gotta be that.
All right, fair enough. He what did was there ever a game where he let you down? Or did he always perform at least average? You were like, yep, that's good enough.
Yeah, no, there's really wasn't a game. I mean, I guess the second game, but that game was just a horrendous game for me anyway. So yeah, no, I think he pretty much did what he was supposed to do the entire time.
All right,
nice.
All right, Tyler, what about you, buddy? What was the MVP, the single unit?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll give you the unit that I've fallen in love with, and then the MVP. So the MVP, it's a boring answer: 6 sides. 6 sides just wreck the hell out of most things in the game. Sure. But for various reasons, I'm going to go with MSU with size, which you want. I know we can get into that later. So the basic idea there is if you're running 6 with a lot of Sylvaneth builds, particularly Nullroot, when you're putting Durthu in there, as opposed to like 18 Chronoth Hunters, you don't have any models on the board. So my army has 39 models, 25 of which have a 5-up base save and 1 wound, so they die very easily.
Right.
So the idea of the MSU is it gives you a little bit more flexibility. You know, you can have a sides on one side of the board, sides on another side of the board. You can better get them into cover, put up a defensive position. You can bubble wrap them with Dryads. Usually, if you got Durthu, you're wanting to put Mystic Shield onto him, particularly with the meta right now. You're putting him with Briar Sheath usually, so he's at a -1 hit always. And of course, that stacks with Crouching Stomp and Combat -2 when you get that off. But I've absolutely fallen in love with the Branch Witch. I think the Branch Witch is a total badass. Multiple games, she was taking on like a unit of 5 Liberators and just about to wipe out a unit of 5 Liberators until some dumbass Protector came in and hopped up on one of my Wildwoods and struck with his 3-inch range to cut up my Branch Witch. She was gonna wipe out those Liberators. So like that just kept. She can be a badass in combat when she's within 3 inches of Wildwood and she's hurt. So yeah, I love her.
Nice. I dig it. All right. Awesome answer. Tom, what about you, buddy? What's your MVP?
So
it's Chaos Warriors. All right, cool story, bro. All right.
No, so it's funny. Like I was looking through my list, and like I was like, well, maybe Bellacorn. So I thought through the stories, and the reality is that like it is Chaos Warriors, but not for the reasons that you would expect. So I did that pile-in video this last week, and I talked about one of these instances where a single Chaos Warrior. It was just one dude. Like I have him marked. Like he has a name now. And he's going to get a custom paint job on that shield because against the individual who ended up placing 3rd, I major victoried like 25 owed, and this one Chaos Warrior was the key to the victory because when he piled in, he pulled the unit of 9 Skyfires into combat.
Oh, Robert.
Yeah, Robert. I piled in through the line and drew Robert's Skyfires into the 3 inches. And what it did is it locked them down, so he couldn't move them to clear off Bellacore from one of the places of power. And like it literally, like they had already gummed up and chewed through like 20 Zangor. Like his Zangor units were in shreds by these Chaos Warriors, just beating the hell out of his entire line. Which let me just say. Chaos Warriors with Sword Shield, I don't know why people think they're terrible in melee. These dudes are 3-up, 4-up base, and if they're reroll 1s, and oftentimes they can get a +1 to hit, suddenly they're like 2-up, 4-up, reroll 1s, and every model gets 2 attacks, and I'm throwing out 28, and all 28 are going to be in, not all 28 because I have to have a tailback, so like 20 are going to be in base-to-base combat. So I'm going to throw out a lot of attacks, and stuff's going to land. Against Tzeentch that has 5-ups, and 6-ups and no save against their horrors, like I just chew through everything I touch. And so, anyways, so the Chaos Warriors, for all the not their defensive purposes, like it was none of that the Chaos Warriors, but it was simply the mobility and the length of the line and how that interacted and pulled people into combat and locked them down. And like, they did their job so well. I played 5 games, 3 of them against Tzeentch players, and I won every Tzeentch game.
Almost by association. Like Sale needs to get an honorable mention since they fall apart without him to throw them up there.
Well, I major victory against every Tzeentch player. Let me say that. They do their that unit does its job, is what I would say.
Sure. It's a well, Nurgle is the classic enemy of Tzeentch, and clearly even a book can't stop the power of old grandfather Nurgle. My answer is the worst because it's just the worst. But
it's the demonic lord, right?
No, it's not, because he only got 1 game.
Oh,
right. He only played in the last game. That guy was definitely the MVP of that last game. The Chaos Lord on demonic mount. A Tzeentch marked Chaos Lord on a demonic mount is just
he is undiscovered gold.
He is hard as a coffin nail. Okay, because that dude he naturally rerolls all saves. He's not a monster. He can walk onto cover. He can be 3-up, 2-up, reroll all failed saves super easily. He's got a 5-up against mortal wounds. He, his command ability is solid.
You can give him phantasmal weapons. Him and his mounts all increase.
You can give him phantasmal weapons. So in Fate Sworn, he and his mount are -2 rend. His dumb demonic horse is -2 rend. Like, these guys are skill at 140, 160 points. I don't remember how many exactly, but he's cheap as dirt.
And he gives Chaos Knights and whoever he buffs +1 to hit and reroll charges.
Right, exactly. He's solid. You got to if there's a future where Chaos Knights gets cheaper, which they should be, that should be the world we live in here in a month. Chaos Knights should not be 200 points for 5. They should be in at 180 or 160, something like that. Then he gets even better. But anyways,
I've already said, him and Archeon, my go-to, with 2 of those Chaos Lords buffed to high heaven, and then some Chaos Knights in a Fate Sworn warband, suddenly you're going to get really scary, especially if we're playing rerolls how they're supposed to be played. Suddenly, when Rend is really scary against rerolls.
Yeah,
if we start doing that, and Chronoth Hunters go up to 220.
So, I'll say, unfortunately, I only played that list once, and the other list I played was the one that had Zangor and Skyfires and stuff in it, and the answer is just Skyfires. I'd love to say it's something else, but it's not. Sorry, they're super good.
But here's the funny thing. Vince only had 6.
I had 6, and they did everything I needed every time. That person needs to die. Point, click, kill. You pull 1 or 2 Tzeentch dice out to guarantee the mortal wounds, and you hot roll the rest, right? And just go for it. And that's what it is. So you're starting from a base of 1 to 2d3 mortal wounds. You'll clean up the rest on rolls, and it's just point, click, kill, point, click, kill, point, click, kill. That's all they do. It's just they're ridiculous.
Only take 6.
Yeah, I mean they absolutely accomplished everything I needed them to.
I was kind of hoping it's.
I don't know. They took 2 rounds to try to kill Marauders and didn't do any damage. 10 Marauders.
They were under Bellacor's dumb thing, yeah. So they didn't get to shoot or attack. Boy, how weird. But look, the Mutalith Vortex Beast was my favorite model. Most enjoyed. Vortex Beast all the way. MVB was MVP, baby, if that's what we're talking about. In total enjoyment factor. And he did a lot of fun stuff. Sadly, he never did his turn somebody into troll brains. He never turned anybody dumb. I was really hoping for that one. He did do a lot of D6 mortal wounds though, which I was perfectly fine with. That seems okay. Yeah, A-okay, that's fine. Okay. So all right. So then let's move on. So talking about current, obviously this is a micro meta, but looking at this tournament through the lens of seeing, as you said, there were some pretty tough armies there, and thinking about the greater meta. What do you think about, sort of the current meta, the current armies that got fielded? When we looked at the top lists going into day 2, there's a lot of chaos up there, a lot of order up there, specifically Stormcast and Tzeentch. Now, it wasn't all. Obviously, there were other competitors. Okay. I don't want to make it seem like I don't want to overstate it. In the top 10, all 4 alliances were there, right? So that should be said. But there was definitely a predominance of the stuff that has books and is the most highly represented. I think Tzeentch and Stormcast were the probably most represented, followed closely by Khorne, right? I haven't looked at the list to actually calculate that out beyond like the top 15, but so I don't know for sure. But so Cale, what do you think? Like, what do you think about the state of the health of the current meta?
Well, so if we're just talking Nash Con,
sure, you can limit it to that first, and then you can talk about the broader or whatever as well if you want.
Yeah, if we're limiting in a vacuum Nash Con, I mean, it was pretty evident on day 2 when we walked in and Tzeentch were all in the top tables. Like it was Tzeentch, Stormcast Tzeentch with Sylvaneth. So there's a recurring pattern on the Tzeentch, and I think they can be built a lot of different ways that are as well strong. Like it's not just like everybody was change host or everybody was whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They were actually several different lists. There was a couple of duplicate lists, but they were built pretty diverse, I would say. I mean, but Tzeentch was an overarching theme. Another overarching theme is everybody had mortal wound spam or some ability to have mortal wounds, except Tyler, I think.
Hey, I didn't have mortal wound spam.
Well, but you could soak up all the mortal wound spam. So I guess you were totally anti-meta. Like that was your army was anti-meta.
Very good counter, Cale. Good reply.
Yeah. So, but I mean, Stormcast, Matt's list was a brilliant list, and it wasn't. I think Matt is a great player. I played him in a Dutch maybe a minor walk. And
it was a brilliant list. It wasn't I had this amazing, real quickly, Cale. I had this amazing conversation with him just before our game, and I asked him about his list, why he took it, and he said, well, he looked through the Stormcast book, and he's a competitive player. He comes to tournaments to win, but he took a list that was not the filthiest thing that he could get out of that book. He saw 2 or 3 of the lists that were very powerful, he thought, and he chose a different list and played the hell out of it. And it's a great list.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it shows.
Yeah. But he had mortal wound damage. I mean, the Fulminators. I have new respect for Fulminators after going against 12 of one of the battles. Freaking nightmare. But yeah, so I mean, every list I think had at least some way of doing mortal wounds. I mean, that's not new news, I don't think by any means. Which is why I think KOs will struggle, personally, but that's a side note.
Ren -2, baby.
But yeah, man. So I say that because my Adepticon army was all Ren -2 with. I mean, I had no mortal wounds, and I had 5-up mortal wound saves. So I was like, oh, I got this. You just don't do a lot to staunch defender, mirror. There's just too much stuff to chew through. I couldn't. That was what I struggled with against Matt's list, is I couldn't chew through the Fulminators. They were. Yeah. I mean, I just couldn't talk. Even with my Baron.
Well, even the Protectors. Even with Warding Lantern, the Protectors are sitting there at 2-up with staunch defender and Warding Lantern.
Exactly. I couldn't chew through it. So there is elements where mortal wounds they're going to have to come and play for, I think, a competitive list. If you limit yourself to no mortal wounds, then you better have a freaking good way to counter mortal wounds, or at least you better have some really nasty mechanics that can just take the mortal wounds out. But yeah, I think for our tournament, Tzeentch and Chaos are still really popular. I think anything with a new book.
Yeah.
With new.
Yep. That's
book,
that.
That's it. Like.
Yep.
Destruction. I mean, they're good, but they lack a lot. I mean, Battle Brew is what makes destruction still relevant. I hate to say it. Maybe Talisman and Protection. I ran that too, but Battle Brew is what makes destruction still have like a competitive feel to it.
Well, and they also got out the best with just like their generic ability, right? Like, their generic ability is quite powerful given their game plan.
Yeah. But you definitely need extra artifacts and the extra spells, etc. Man, I mean, it just definitely adds a new level to the game that some of the other death players and the destruction players don't have. So that's just me, my 2 cents.
No, I certainly echo a lot of what you said. It's funny you mentioned the Fulminators, and somebody, Reverend Dangle, said Fulminators equal the worst in the comments. Or sorry, Luke Snell said it. I'm sorry, Luke and Reverend. I'm looking. I was looking over the side, and they were both right next to each other. Yes, I agree with that. Like I played fulminate like a 4-pack of fulminators back to back in 2 games, and so like I was just like, well, here's my plan. How do we play this? How do we play this whole game and not attack the fulminators and still win? Right?
Yeah.
Like because attacking them is a loss. Like that's the bottom line. It's 20 wounds that I need to deal like 200 wounds to kill them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to be able to generate that amount of damage. So how can I just let them live? Like, because there's still only 1 unit, right? They can only do so much on the battlefield. So it's more like how much do I control and corral them and prevent them from wrecking my whole army while I spread out and do everything I need to, right? Yeah. And you know, the second time I played fulminators, the end of the game ended with his 4 fulminators untouched and like a Knight of Xeros on 2 wounds, and that was all that was left on the table.
The 12 fulminators, I want to just preface, they were not 1 unit. They were all MSU. And all I did, and all I could do was each turn, I just sent a block of goblins in. They were just bait, clickbait. Here you go. I strung them out to 1 inch apart, which is what I could do, but I literally covered up like a quarter of the board, and I said, they're not moving, but 8 inches. And then did it turn 2. There you go. It didn't help that he left 2 in the realm and didn't drop them down until turn 2 or 3. But I couldn't even a Stonehorn. I sent a unit. Doesn't do anything to it. Like it's so hard to go through those wins.
They're tough.
But
all right, Tyler, what about you, buddy? What do you think?
Okay, so yeah, curious your guys' opinions on this, just at a general level. So to step on the podcast episode that'll be coming out hopefully in a couple of days. One point that I bring up, mainly just for consideration, just again sharing my own personal opinion, is that it seems like the landscape at the moment has too many tier 1 and then tier 3 builds, whereas we would like to see a much higher concentration in the tier 2 zone, in particular with Stormcast, Blades of Corn, and Sylvaneth, for my money, particularly reflective of inhabiting that sweet spot in that, tier 1.5 to tier 2.5 space. Maybe Fire Slayers with the new experimental points.
Man, if they got a book,
yeah.
I want to buy them so bad. If they got,
I have my mixed KO Fire Slayer list already done.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I think the new points, they're definitely inching in on that territory, and a book I think would like land them securely into the right where they should be, sweet spot, not broken, very competitive.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
in that tier 1 zone, of course, I think it's fair to say we're seeing certain mixed chaos, order, and destruction builds that are pretty consistently strong. Death, of course, is not up there for various reasons. They have fewer selections in order to try to draw great efficiency. And so Andrew Harrison with his mixed chaos list, choosing the most efficient things. I'll take Cell, I'll take a Shaman, 9 Skyfires, 3 Storm Fiends, 30 Bloodletters, a Blood Secrator, and I'm good to go.
I wish I would have played that list.
Yeah, obviously you have a list and that's great. We saw a few lists at Nashcon that were a response to the meta. I suspect part of the issue is that certain armies at the moment don't have a great response to that meta, although again, that's potentially relative to a lack of knowledge, where it's so early and we have a lot more experimentation and exploration to do. Speaking for Sylvaneth, I know it's challenging to go up against Zinch, and some of these mixed chaos or even mixed order list with the mortal wound output that they can realize, particularly when they're rocking a bell wound that turns their 18-inch range into 36 inches. You have nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
So, but I love, for the most part, the place that Sylvaneth, Stormcast, and Blades of Corn are at, because it is a bit rock, paper, scissors. They have counters, but in general, I think you've got a shot. When you go to an event like Nashcon or Battleshock Bash, you've got a shot, depending on how things go, the various variables to win that tournament or to play on the top tables. Yeah. With some of those tier 1 lists, and then we have a ton in that tier 3 space. So that's, I don't know, what do you guys think about that? It's kind of in kind of quick summary. That's kind of my general sense right now.
No, I think I think that is mostly correct. Yeah. And I'll say that, like, even within the stuff, there's a couple of those outliers, and most of them rely on a couple things that are too efficient. The world could be greatly upended with a few points moves, right? If things like Sale, which we just saw the new Forgeworld points, and he's still 160, so apparently that's not changing. But
no, that's not true. Like we don't know. Like
sure. I'm not reading too much into it. I understand. I'm saying as of right now, he's still 160. As of that point fix.
Yeah.
Sad to see those greater demons still at that 480, 500 point range. That's too expensive. Way to make people want to spend £100. I got like a 10-minute rant on that. I'm not going to go into it, but there's no way that thing is that those greater demons are 80 points more expensive than a Morn Goal. All right, I'll shut up. I've said my piece. So
okay, so is it verified, or is the general consensus that Forgeworld and Games Workshop do not collaborate on the development of rules and points for Forgeworld models?
In some conversations, I've been told that they are moving towards more collaboration.
Okay.
Yes.
I hope so.
And the answer is yes, they do. They do talk, but in the end, the decisions are made individually.
Okay.
Okay. So but take Skyfires for example. Okay, they're the sort of low hanging fruit. Most of the Tzeentch armies that were hyper competitive were powered in some fashion by them. You don't need 27 of them to be powered by them.
No, as Vin said, 6 will get the job done.
Right. Like I had 6 and they were plenty efficient enough. But like if you points move those around some, things could change a lot, right? So like that is to say, it doesn't take a lot to move these lists all over the place to shake the meta. It doesn't take more than we really haven't seen what KO are going to do if they're going to have any impact on the meta. One or two other battle tomes that got released in this interim 40K window that even are repacks, but of other armies, but with battle tomes that introduce new rules can completely shake things up. So it's hard to say. Like there's a couple little levers that could get pulled that could just really upend those top items, right? So in the end, I will say that even given the strength of those lists, I certainly never felt in any of the games like I wasn't at least competitive. I always felt like the only game I didn't enjoy was the game against Tom, and I don't think Tom is running a hardcore what would be considered tier 1 list. Tom was just running a not fun list.
Yeah, almost nothing on my list is going to get a heavy points adjustment. Like I can Sale maybe, but I'm sitting on 120 summoning points. So unless they bump him up to 300 plus points, my list doesn't change. And so which is possible. I anticipated they would go to 280. But with that said, that had more to do with the list itself and the composition and what the play experience is than it actually had anything to do with any one unit there. Like
outside of impact or differences of opinion about how fun Tom's list is to play, I would think it's fair to say that his list is perfectly reflective of a solid tier 2 from a competitive standpoint. It's very reflective of what we would like to see optimized, the highest percentage in the landscape.
Agreed. Totally agreed.
Yeah, and what I would say is that I think that a lot of the overperforming lists are just a couple points adjustments away from being unplayable. And what I mean by that is what we see right now is the hyper performing tier 1 lists with a handful of points adjustments. Those lists will come crashing down.
So I don't want to step on your point, Vince, but I wanted to come back and talk about the tier 1 is dominated by mixed allegiance list.
Yep.
So mixed order, etc. I would say, for my money, the only specific allegiance, build, army, faction that is within tier 1 is Tzeentch at the moment for some of these reasons that we're discussing. And it would not necessarily require much. That could be debatable. Is Tzeentch a tier 1? I think I would be more confident to say they're reflective of a 1.5 than maybe a solid tier 1. Whereas mixed chaos, the point being that you can get obviously a lot more efficiency within the context of mixed allegiance versus versus a specific allegiance. So Kurnoth Hunters, the classic example, get a lot more efficient in mixed order than they are within Sylvaneth, because there are various things in Sylvaneth right now that are a little bit costed. There are various things within Sylvaneth that are only efficient within Sylvaneth Allegiance because of the Wildwoods. Nobody takes Dryads within a mixed order list because they don't want to pay 40 Wildwood points. nobody's taking Durthu because you want to have Wild Woods by him, keep him within 3 inches for those plus D3 attacks. 3 attacks, 3s and 3s. He's going to miss he's going to miss even more than he does now. So, what do you guys think? I mean, do you have any thoughts on this issue? I had reached out to someone at GW during the GH1 round of feedback, particularly on the, and suggested, well, what if we were to have a parenthetical point value that do have greater efficiency in a mixed allegiance versus their specific allegiance? Again, Kurnoth Hunters. I would fully accept Kurnoth Hunters at 220 within in the parentheses for mixed order, but right now 180 feels decent, feels reasonable within specific Sylvaneth allegiance. I think that right now in the landscape they're in that solid tier 2 space.
So conditional point values rather than
if you're mixed allegiance, not for everything, but for certain units, and this is a target audience, of course, so competitive players. Not necessarily everybody, but like a way to signal to them as maybe one potentially minor simple way to address some of these units. Anyway, I'm just curious what you guys think about this general.
Sure. Okay. So, well, I'll say that as with all things, we must look to history first for these lessons, or we're never the first person to discover anything.
Yeah.
And so what I'll say is if you go back to the early, what you're talking about is the pull between linear and modular design, right? Modular design is by its nature more powerful because modular harvests best in breed and puts them together. In the early days of Magic the Gathering back in the late 90s, there was a deck called The Deck, and it was what everybody played because it was just the deck. It was called The Deck. Everybody knew what it was. It was a best in breed of all the Magic cards in the game powered by the efficiency of dual lands.
Dual lands and moxes and
and it just
mana generation.
It was just all the best stuff, and you just controlled the game, and everybody had their version of the deck and blah blah blah. It was a completely modular list, right? Now, what the battle tomes represent is linear design. By taking A, you want to take B. By taking B, you want to take C. By taking C, it necessitates D, and so on and so forth, right?
And every you create a set power level.
Yeah, every choice leads to the next, right? So in Magic terms, that's like tribal decks, right? Like all knights or all demons or all zombies or your zombie deck or whatever.
Slivers.
Right? Sure, whatever. So like, and it was it's been a balancing act that Magic's always had to walk very carefully because you want to allow some modularity, right? Like you don't want to force people into linear builds and say battle tome's the only way to go. You have to play in faction. Part of the fun of this game should be that I can freely go modular, right? And my concern with the split points is that it's a chainsaw scalpel situation that like you're going to end up hurting far more people who just like putting stuff together because they have their own particular list they like to use at home, and maybe they've got some hunters, but then they also use some Bretonnian knights and stuff like that because they've got their own little list that they love. And it's not at all like aiming at some kind of powerhouse tier 1 build. It's just that's the stuff they like to put together because it's the models they own or whatever. And you're really kneecapping those people for no reason, right? Like what you're trying to put your finger on is there is some situation where when A plus B plus C, where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? And how do you compensate
it has
that?
to. And then this is the feedback that I gave to GW a while back on stacking. I wrote a very long feedback that to a number of the people in the design team at GW, and I know that it did get in their hands, and we've had conversations about it. And the reality is that at the end of the day, this was my feedback, by the way, to the Tomb King's points, and all that. And Craggy was the perfect example of this because he was the sum of the parts. Because the problem was that Craggy went up from like 20 points base up to like 120 or something. And he was symptomatic of this issue where the individual model wasn't controlling their points cost. It was the synergy. The synergy was suddenly controlling the points costs. And the problem is that is a bad design road if you can continue to follow that. Because what ends up happening is it's actually the synergies that are out of control. The synergies are what you need to wrap your arms around. So, like, +1 to wound is not an issue for Chaos. Pestilence priests are sitting at 80 points, can get +1 stacking wound. It's never been an issue, right? Jump over to Death. You suddenly have a general who you get +2 to wound from Cetra and a Royal War Sphinx at 700 points, 720 points. and people are losing their damn minds because
of what it does to snakes. Yeah,
because of what it does to snakes.
Yeah.
But you can get that same deal for 160 points in chaos. And so it has to do with synergies. The problem is the synergies, not the actual abilities.
My argument is this ultimately.
Yeah.
Don't penalize modularity, incentivize linear builds, right?
Yeah.
And you've got to push that pedal down very slowly. What I mean by that is, sure, the more battle tomes that come out, every battle tome is a stake in the ground on the side of linear building, right? For the most part. Sometimes there are cross faction things, and they're like, obviously the Sylvaneth book has Stormcast Allegiant, big battalion or whatever. But for the most part, it's about linearness, right? Stay in this thing, stay in your lanes, get these extra bennies, right? And so the more that gets pushed, and the more you kind of clamp the few high performers in the best of lists, right? With you take a couple little of the best performers, you adjust their points slightly, you make it so it's not as you're just slowly tilting the scales. You see what I'm saying? Because what you want to get is something that looks like this, right? Yeah. You want it to be kind of literally, I'm moving my hands intentionally. You want this to be the constant pull of the game, right? Where sometimes it tilts toward people liking tribal decks and wanting to be all in a thing. And sometimes there's a slight incentive toward being modular and kind of doing a best of, and those things constantly pull back and forth. And the meta kind of swirls a little bit and shakes up because that keeps the natural churn in the meta.
Can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
This is why the mega battalion push that GW has been on is so important. Because what this does is that is linear design at its finest. Mega battalions incentivize
your
entire army into a single battalion. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it keeps it creates lanes that you have to operate in. And the ability to control your drop rate is one of the 4 kind of competitive hallmarks.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So,
that was very evident in Nashcon.
Yes.
Yeah. There were a couple of games where if I had lost the 50-50 roll to be able to determine first turn, that has a considerable impact on Sylvaneth, obviously.
Yeah. And what the reality is that mixed lists, best of lists, never gain that opportunity.
Yeah.
They're going to lose initiative every single time.
That's really
against linear design. And so the funny thing is you've seen them GW pushing this pedal down harder and harder. Okay, so you see Tzeentch, we saw it with Khorne. Okay, or not? No, Tzeentch and Stormcast, we saw it heavy, and then they let it back up with Khorne. If you look at the Khorne book, almost all their mega battalions, it pulls back on their additional battalions that you add 3 to 8, and only adds additional individual units. And so it pulled back on the power on the Khorne, and it's basically completely absent from KO.
Right.
And so they are very consciously exploring the boundaries of this design space and the impact on armies, and you can see it in the actual battle tomes that have been released over the last 6 months.
Yep.
Yeah. Good point.
So, overall, I think it's something that's going to it takes time is my short answer, right? Because you can't really predict this. There's just too many unknowns, right? So you've got to kind of watch and adjust. You've almost got to go lean with it, right? If I was talking about design strategy. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, good stuff. Let's close out here because we've gone for a long time. Oh my God, we've gone for a long time, but that's all right. This is a good conversation.
We got to talk about schemes, of course.
That's correct. So let's close out. Let's talk about schemes. So obviously,
the great equalizer.
David used schemes during this, and he was put those in there, which I was excited to see happen. I will say personally, I was very happy to see that, and I obviously greatly enjoyed them.
Vince got the title of the schemer.
That's right. I did get the title. I got all 5 of my schemes completed in every game. Here's what's relevant to me. I ended firmly sort of in the middle of the pack. I don't know what I ended at. 13, 15, something like that. I don't remember. Somewhere in there, right? And I went 1 and 4. Okay. That's the real record. I had 1 major win and 4 major losses.
Yep.
But I got schemes every time. And what that meant was at the end of those 5 games, I was like, I did good.
Yeah.
Right? Like in my head, I was like, I had fun. I accomplished things. If I had just shown up and spent 5 games, 4 of which getting my teeth kicked in to no benefit, right? And felt like I got nothing. I'm not sure I would have had as good of a time. Like there were other things I enjoyed. For the most part, the games are still fun. Don't get me wrong, but it was way better, right?
Oh yeah.
And it wasn't like I was threatening winning the tournament with them. No, not even close. But it gave me something to play for every game, right? And so my personal take, this is why I'm the giant advocate of schemes, because it helps losers like me actually feel like we're doing something, which is nice. Yeah. But all right, but I want to get both of your feedback. I shouldn't have given all mine first because that's going to color something. But I do want honest feedback. If you hated it, just say it's stupid, and I'm not going to be personally offended. So Cale, what did you think? Like overall, what was your thoughts on the schemes?
Yeah, so I agree with everything you said. So I want to actually bring into what schemes did in this tournament, and what I noticed is you can always, and this was going back to when y'all were talking about tier list. There's always a human component to tier list.
Yep.
The top performers are always going to be at the top, no matter what, because they bring the most efficient units. But that being said, you're always going to have a group of people that come in. They don't care about being first. If they win, they win. But they want to have a good time, and they want to have a narrative, and they want to have a story. And I thought schemes did a great job, but way better than secondary and tertiary objectives.
Yep.
What they did is they brought into the table a competitive mindset, because you're still competing to get your scheme. You're still competing to get the game win. You're still competing to not get your teeth kicked in. But what you're doing now is you're creating a narrative on both sides, a narrative on your side, because you're thinking, I wonder what his scheme is.
Right.
I think I see what he's doing when he charges a zombie dragon into my unit of grass and everything else, but I don't know. But I see right here, I have my scheme where I have to get my units killed. So it kind of portrays a narrative event in a competitive scene, which I think is brilliant, and I think it allows both players to have fun if you're competitive, if you're not competitive. Because I am very competitive. I hate losing, but I also want to make sure that I have a fun game with my opponent, and I definitely think like the schemes are really what brought together the games, because there are some times where I'm just like, man, I feel so. I kind of feel bad, or I feel bad for myself because I'm getting my teeth kicked in. But heck yeah, I got that scheme, baby. You know, it was like an element of like in my mind, I was just playing it as an element of a story that I'm telling. So I thought that was brilliant, and I think that it would be. I'm sure y'all talk with GW about it, but I think it would be something really like worth putting into to really kind of overall help the community. So when I almost don't even go on the forums anymore because I keep hearing it, or I keep seeing people rant about how stupid the game was because they got blown off the table, or how much this. And I'm like, man, if you had some kind of element where you were playing fun, like a scheme, then it would just kind of take away that cutting feeling that you just got your teeth kicked in. So that's my personal perspective. I think it was a great, maybe an accident, maybe not, but an accidental way to bring together your competitive players and your non-competitive players. I thought it was great. So thank you for that.
Well, good. That makes me very happy. And yes, I completely agree with all of that. The unintentional narratives that formed, the complete turnarounds, the feeling of pulling like victory from the jaws of defeat, of having something on the backside, winning for losing, as it were, sometimes. And also like the other important thing of the way that, you know, we tried to design the schemes was to suit those non-tier 1 armies, rewarding you for things like getting
mobility,
your own stuff killed, for being highly mobile, right? For unusual things that like beater lists don't necessarily do or have, right? Like what lost Matt his scheme in the game against me was he picked one to get his guy killed. And I was like, you're out of your mind. I'm never killing Mr. Staunch Defender, Unkillable Lord. Get out of here. Like, you don't, your list is way too hard. Okay, for that. Like, that's just not gonna happen, buddy. I don't have the gas or the engine to bring that dude down. You built him too tough. It's not my fault. You built a hard list. So
No,
like
but
it's interesting what it levers against, right?
Yeah.
Because it does act, it sits on the other side of the fulcrum often from like what it truly makes the tier 1 list work in the normal scenarios, right? And the other thing I want to put a pin on real quick is the difference between that and just secondary objectives. I think there's a huge difference, like a massive difference, because
Absolutely.
secondary objectives sit on the page. They're usually worth very little. Like David and setting it at the minor victory was exactly correct.
Yeah.
Right? Because it still made it anytime you got secondary objectives that are like throwaway points, screw it. I don't care. All that matters is the major. I can deal with that. If I get that, neat. Don't make it bonus nachos, right? If it's the chips that come on your table for free at the beginning of the meal at Chewy's, it doesn't count. It's not your food. Okay. It needs to be the actual meal. And so like the nature of what they were meant they were important enough, you cared and you wanted to play for them. And also the fact that you had a different one. Like secondary objectives sit there and everybody, we both know what they are. You know I'm going for it. I know you're going for it. It's a mutually exclusive thing. Only one of us can have it. Yep. Schemes don't work like that. They're secret. We could both achieve ours. Maybe. Right? Like,
or they could be mutually exclusive. Like you versus Matt. You versus Matt. Like that is the best story ever. Please tell your game against Matt with secondary or with your schemes, Vince.
I'll quickly explain what happened in that game with Matt. So Matt picked the traitor in your ranks scheme, where like you have to get one of your own characters killed because you've discovered they're a traitor for the other side. But you've got to basically, you can't just murder them, right? You got to keep it hush hush. So, get them killed in battle. That way nobody knows that you have spies in your midst, right? So he picked his Lord Celestin for that. Unbeknownst to me completely, in the same game, I picked Secret Messenger. Okay? And Secret Messenger there is a spy in the enemy ranks, and you have to leave that hero alive so that you can get the secret message from them.
And guess who Vince picked?
And we both picked the same hero, his Lord Celestin, because I looked at it and went, there's no way I'm killing that guy. He is unkillable. That is my secret messenger. And so like he charged me with that dude right into the middle of a bunch of guys, like into the kill box, just like into the middle of my army. And immediately the next round, everybody retreated away from him. And he's like, where are you going, guys? Come on. What the heck? So, it was hilarious that things like that can emerge. That's the kind of fun you can get out of those things, right? Those are lightning in a bottle moments you can't plan for. And when they happen, like I will remember that story pretty much forever, right? Like that was a Warhammer memory I will carry with me for my gaming life.
You can, to put a pin on this, I can kind of remember my Adepticon games. I had some great ones. I had some fun games. I don't remember any of the secondary objectives. I don't remember completing any of them. I don't remember any of them being of any significance. And that's not a knock against Alex at all. That's just I'll say the same thing about Holy Wars,
right?
Or Holy Havoc. The reality is that they aren't able to capture the lightning in the bottle that like the schemes. I think when we designed them, that was an intentional design decision.
Oh my God! By the way, Luke Snell just said in the comments that one of his games, both players used the Tomb King's curse simultaneously and didn't know it, so they were passing the curses back and forth, which sounds amazing. All right, so
nice.
At any rate, Tyler, you never got a chance to go. I'm sorry, Tyler, please. Your own thoughts, because I know you had some significant thoughts on this.
Yeah, I wanted to have an extended. I mean, obviously we're going long, but an extensive discussion on this for a few reasons. So, real quickly to follow up on what you just discussed. So, a situation where I could imagine some competitive players viewing those amazingly fun scenarios and saying, "Well, you're actually talking about 1-1. You're actually talking about, in the end, a wash because they cancel out." So I'm curious real quickly, what do you guys think about, I mean, from a standpoint of these are worth 10 victory points, a minor victory, a significant impact potentially on the standings, and they did have a considerable impact on the standings that we saw. If we have a number of those situations cropping up because of the potential interactions of these pairings where you have a cancel out effect, is that a problem in the design?
They're doing their job. And what I would say is this. This is what I said at the very beginning when we introduced schemes. What did I say about them? What are they? They're the great equalizer.
Equalizer, sure.
Yeah. Because what it does is that it actually takes that edge off of the hyper competitive tier 1 lists and levels it out with your tier 2 lists. Because of the points, what it does is it squishes it down and it makes it so that everything is going to turn. So the average number of schemes that the players at Nashcon completed were 3.
Yeah.
Right. It was a 60% success rate, which is, by the way, beforehand my exact goal.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal. Because what that means is that you have 3 as the average and you get standard deviations off.
Right.
Okay. And so the goal is that what you're trying to do is get it so that most people are going to get 3, but there's going to be a couple players that play exceptionally well. Because schemes are completed not in list building.
Right.
Schemes are completed in playing the matches themselves. Okay? That's a very big difference. You're gauging the difference between having a hard-as-nails list and being an excellent general.
And just to clarify, you think that you should be able to see the list of schemes as part of the event pack?
Yes.
Okay.
But having 20, like we had 19 basically that David, like you couldn't plan for all of these. And some of these schemes required certain pieces. One I drew required having a totem.
Which I know was the one. Let me address that one real quick.
That was on my list.
I know people hated that one. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And I argued with Vince about it.
Yeah,
like,
he went back and forth with me.
When we were writing.
People who hated the totem thing, Tom was your ally. Now let me tell you why you're wrong. Okay? Because this, and it's the same, but there was a wizard one too. Number one, there's only one totem in the list and one wizard in the list.
Yep.
Knowing that, and I wrote those knowing that there would only be one of each, knowing that you were going to have 7, you were going to have a draw of 7 for 5 games, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have put him in there had I not known that you had 7 for 5. Okay.
Yep.
But because I knew that, that's why I put them in there.
What was the wizard one? What was the name?
I don't know.
It was like ritual. It was the ritual one where you had to complete a ritual one, so you had to use a wizard. I think it's a wizard or priest.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I think it was multiple keywords. Yeah.
Yes. Anywho, the point is that I made sure no one could get hard screwed. By that I mean, imagine you're in a situation where you don't have totems, you don't have wizards, and you only have 5 schemes, and so you're just dead in the water on 2. If that would have been the case, I wouldn't have written them in there, right? Because that would have just made it so you don't want to ever. I didn't want to ever put anybody in a situation where they were just completely locked out. Like this just doesn't exist in my army. There's no way I could have done this, right? Yeah. That's a bad time. But the totem thing, having a dead choice, one of your 7 be a dead choice, to me, is worth it for the armies that do. Because there aren't a lot of people that run around with totems. But when that person who does have a totem gets that scheme, they're like, oh, yeah. Right? It's
unless
such
they're bloodbound.
Yes, it's such a... Well, then it's even funnier. No, again... For other reasons, there was a lot of layers to my thinking here. Yeah, you're darn right.
We talked about this.
Yes, this is another reason I wrote that scheme. That scheme was written very specifically. It made you move your totem to the enemy deployment zone to complete it. What do bloodbound players want to do with their totem?
Hide
on the 30-inch line, right?
Yep.
This cross incentivizes that not to happen. To say if you want to use that scheme, one game out of your 5, you better kick his happy butt into gear and get him
run him across the table.
Strap them BKs on, buddy. It's time to start running, okay? And that's my point. Like, that is a very interesting play experience for that player, and he suddenly has something that player can do that is completely unique to them. So the minor negative of everybody else, the people who got it had a dead scheme if they didn't have a totem. They still had 6 to choose from.
And they could have built their lists with that in the list.
In many cases, like lots of armies that were there.
People that would have a problem with it would be people like me who have a set list and don't want to change their lists.
Right. Now, and again, it was pre-published, like which I absolutely think is appropriate. Yes, 100%. You should be able to look at the full list before you go into it. Yep. 1,000 times. Yes. These should not be secret. Like pre the game, the total list. Is worth the massive positivity for that one person who gets it and the interesting things it then does with that style of play. right? With what that player's choices are. So, okay, I went on a giant rant, but there you
go. To return to my prior point, Tyler, just to finish that off, is that it is the great equalizer, because the reality is that the top 8 players, top 8 places, maybe more, the entire tournament rankings would have swung if they had gotten their schemes.
Yeah,
I can say with absolute confidence that had I, like, my last 2 schemes, Vince screwed me out of one.
Booyah.
And then the other one literally came down to 4 Blight Kings murderizing a Lord of Change. I dropped 23 wounds on him. He needed to save 12. So that
and he saved 11.
And he saved 11. Had he not, like, I would have murderized him and got my last scheme, and that would immediately bump me into 3rd place.
Yep.
Had I gotten both that and Vince, I would have jumped to 1st easy and been way over. So I say all that to say what it did was it moved it so that it's a lot tighter, a lot thinner margin at the top. Yep. And what ends up actually determining who wins is not who brings the hardest list or who plays those pre-known scenarios the best, but who plays those pre-known scenarios while juggling things that they can't control. Right. And those are your best generals. And that's the point, is that the truly the best generals will rise to the top.
Yeah, so I want to feed off, because Tyler asked from us competitive point, and I go to tournaments only to be competitive. It's easy to build. I say it's easy, but you can look online and you can see, you can pick from each respective category: chaos, order, destruction, whatever, and you can kind of figure out which lists are A list, which lists are C lists, so to speak, or 1s and 3s. What the schemes did is it made, and this has been said, but I just want to reiterate, it made the generals that brought those ones, those lists with 1s, it made them actually really use generalship instead of just, hey, I'm going to shoot you with 3 Thunder Tusks, and this is a note. There was that list there, but this is no correlation to him. But just thinking about Adepticon, where that came out, where it makes it a difference, because what happened is if you brought that list, you probably you had a tough time getting your schemes because you killed everything on turn 2, like they do, like what 3 Thunder Tusk and a Stone Horn and a Cutting Rock does. So you have to be a little bit more crafty, and you have to really kind of be, well, I can easily get a KO, not KO, but an easy knockout. But then is the risk worth the reward? And that determines generalship. And I think that is more important than just building a nice nifty list that has thousands of mortal wound spams, etc. So that is why schemes, to me, or just we'll talk about schemes. I don't think that's why the tertiary and secondary objectives solved anything. I don't think they solved anything at all. I think what they did is they were just more things to worry about. What I think schemes do is it really kind of brings the generalship, and you can at that point you can kind of see, all right, well, you have this freaking boss list, but how's your generalship going to follow with that boss list? Or you can take a mediocre list like Vince did, and some other lists that were out there, but they just excelled. They excelled because they had great generalship, and they were able to still put up their own against some of these tier 1 lists. Does that make sense? Like, I hope I'm not doing worse, but
it totally does. I'll also say the direct cancel thing that you're talking about, the concern, is honestly pretty rare. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that was a fun example with Matt, but in most games, both players, if they both play smart, could achieve their schemes if they're they general right.
And if you were aware of the whole scheme list, you could start to figure it out. Like on the one where the final game where Vince set out his chariots on the 2 edges of the board, and he had to touch all 4 corners.
Right.
And then, like, he set him there, and they start running forward. And you said about halfway through, Vince, your opponent was like,
Halfway is not being fair to my opponent. Like turn 2, he's like, wait a minute.
Okay, so some of the points I wanted to discuss. I've looked at a lot of different tournament packs over the last year plus, and UK scene, US scene, and in the hope of running a tournament at some point. And going into this tournament with the pack, on paper, the schemes and the details of the schemes seemed like the best formulation that I'd seen to date for achieving what many tournament TOs have been trying to achieve. as this additional layer on top of AOS that's really important in the competitive landscape for have that squishing effect that you guys just talked about. That was the thought on paper, and at least seeing it play out in 5 games, it only reinforced that initial impression. More so than I was really surprised at how well they worked on a number of factors. Going into that last game, there were many of us who were in contention, and that's incredible. And you look at the final results, very close field.
Right.
I was the average. I missed 2 schemes. If I had gotten at least a minor and the last game I would have won the tournament by 5 points.
Yep.
And so there were a number of these scenarios with a number of us. That's amazing. Okay, so I wanted to get into some of the details. So in general, for my money at the moment, this looks like the best formulation of this additional layer that I've seen so far in among the toolkit that TO has been putting together to try to address some of these different variables, with the competitive landscape, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, etc. Okay, so going through it was 19, I had 19 cards in the deck I saw. It seemed like, I'm curious, Tom and Vince, your guys' thoughts on this. So it seemed like 9, there might be some difference of opinion on this, but it seemed like there were at least 9 that were particularly good from the standpoint of a general purpose standpoint. That is, majority of builds could achieve those 9 that I had seen. And then there were around 7 or so that I thought were challenging, but effective, but that incentivized or disincentivized a number of these other factors that you guys are talking about. So disincentivizing lots of chaff and MSU. I thought that some gave all disincentivized lots of chaff in MSU, at least in a small way. Booby trap disincentivized a lack of mobility.
Right.
Treacherous progression disincentivized lots of heroes.
Yep.
So I was going through these cards and seeing all these different forms of disincentives and incentives. So I was kind of curious to share some thoughts and reflection, and then hear you guys. What were the actual design intentions that you had for this deck of cards and some of these things? And then there were 3 that seemed potentially very problematic, and you've already mentioned one, the totem, of course.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, you guys, my mileage may vary on this. I picked out Blood for the Blood God. At the start of the game, nominate a single piece of terrain. This contains a hidden alternate core, and if at any point in the game at least 40 wounds have been dealt to either units on the chosen terrain, any units in the chosen terrain, enemy or friendly, you may reveal this 40 freaking wounds on a chosen terrain piece. That seems really difficult. Yeah. And I think, Cal, you had that one.
Maybe.
It could be dealt by either on the terrain piece or by units on the terrain piece, right? So like a ranged unit sitting on the terrain
piece. Like a Skyfire.
A Skyfire could do it. Yeah, I was thinking like, okay, yes, maybe not so much on that one.
But how often were like 3 points of power or one of the points on a terrain piece? How often were that's what I would push back on, is that like I can highlight a number of instances where there are terrain pieces that are in the center of the battlefield. And those are going to be in hot contention because of the actual scenario itself. And you save those cards if you're even going to try to attempt that, you're going to save it for those scenarios that correspond with that landscape.
Right. Yeah. So
what I'll say is, well, let me answer this real quick too. That was a tough one because I'll be completely honest with you. That number was a shot in the dark, right? It was like a thinking about
what feels right.
It was a pure gut feeling. I don't know if 40 wounds is right. It might be too high. We
need to look at the completion rate. Like, we're going to get those numbers from David.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but I agree with you that, like, I like the concept of it. I'm just not sure 40 is the exact right number. So,
yeah. So let me tell you that, like, so I had that card and I didn't play it, but there's 2 instances where I think that card does really good. First off, it incentivizes something that actually I think is understated in all tournaments and underused in all tournaments. It incentivizes using terrain.
Right.
Like terrain, it doesn't get talked about enough, but it's such an impact on the game. Like it really does. I think, in my opinion, it's probably one of the top 5 things, in my opinion, that determine outcomes of the game. How terrain's placed, where it's placed, what it does on your dice roll 1 through 6. Do you get mystical? Do you get damned? Do you get whatever? So it incentivizes using terrain, and not only terrain, especially now that you have KOs, you're going to have to start having line of sight blocking terrain. Like you're just going to have to, unless you're just going to get pelted off the board. Skyfire, same thing. You're going to have line of sight terrain. So big pieces of terrain are going to be incentivized with that card. Also, I saved that card in case I got drawn against you, Tyler, against Sylvaneth, because I didn't have in my list any way to deal really with if I was going to play you. I either had to get really lucky on my weird fist battalion, or I'm just going to sit there and just get my freaking butt kicked in because, or the Ragnarok, but get my butt kicked in because you're just going to re-roll with your Kernel Thunder. So I was like, well,
you could probably kill 40 wounds of goblins.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you know, being safe.
absolutely.
It has some specific instances where I thought it was brilliant, and I mean, but I didn't play it because I didn't have the need to, because I never got that off. But I think there are instances where it's definitely doable. Do I think
that's fair? Yeah.
I thought 5, but that's just me in general.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Can I?
Go. Yeah.
I would say, can I just add one other instance where it'd be easy to complete? Like for my list, had I had that scenario, that would have been a gimme. That would have been an easy scenario. Because what it would happen is I would have just chosen a terrain piece that my tail of Chaos Warriors is going to track over.
Oh yeah.
And then my Chaos Warriors are going to do or be dealt 40 wounds over the course of the game.
Sure. Because
like,
they're
so,
a 56 wound unit.
Yeah, it's a 56 wound unit. I'm either going to dish out or they're going to dish to me, and I have at least, some models on the terrain piece.
Yeah,
so done. And so like for me in my list, that would have been like 3 points. Yeah, like that would have been a non-issue.
So what's your third one?
Yeah, so I think now that you guys have said a little bit about your thinking behind some of these, it was Mapmaker, and we actually just talked a little bit about it. So if at any point in the game you have touched all 4 corners of the play area that has come within 1 inch of the corner of the player with any of your units, you may reveal the scheme as successful. I mean, initially when I was looking at it, it seemed like 1, okay, well that's not general purpose. There's going to be certain lists that's going to be very difficult to do that with, but kind of more reflective of particular lists.
You're going to have to dedicate 2 units. So when we designed that, like that was one of the discussion is basically in order to complete that, you are going to dedicate 2 of your units to running from corner to corner.
To being on the outer edges. So there was a lot of goals with that map maker scheme. One is it incentivizes people who have the type of mobility that is often undervalued. I always think of like Slaanesh type lists whose only good thing that they have is they run real fast, right? Like that's like there's a thing that army's pretty good at that scheme. But also it pulls attention to the outside of the table, right? Which is not where the game tends to be played, right? The game tends to be played within, like if you took your average 6x4 table and drew a diamond in the Border Wars objectives, that's where the game actually happens for the most part, right? Like take the game, now turn a diamond like this inside the table. That's where the game happens. So it's interesting to me to pull to the farthest points away from that square. And so those were my 2 goals with that one. So
one general question was, again, I'm sure this is going to vary from person to person when they look at the 19 cards. When I looked at them, I saw roughly at least 9 that seemed particularly good for for the vast majority of lists. Very general purpose. And then I saw maybe even throw in, if you throw in Mapmaker and Blood for the Blood God and maybe just leave out Totem, you've got a pretty even split where I saw, let's say in this case, the other half were some combination of disincentivizing or incentivizing a particular component that not all lists are going to have. So to what degree was that intentional? To what degree were you satisfied with the results and so on? It was a 100% intentional choice. Absolutely part of like when I looked through the design, I mean, I started by just sketching out ideas I thought sounded fun.
We just threw spaghetti at the wall.
But then what I looked at was after I had done that, I always start with just sort of a top-down design of like what sounds like neat ideas, right? Just because you want to start with whatever is you're the most passionate about. So I just thought about things that sounded fun or cool or interesting or unique. That's where like Tomb King's Curse came from, right? Like Tomb King's Curse came out of just a fun idea I had, where like, wouldn't it be neat to have an incentive to get your unit killed? Yeah. Right. Like, and to pass this on, and then to have that curse kind of travel around. It was a fun narrative, right? And then it is what it is. But then at the end, there was a more bottom-up focus to say, like, okay, half of these need to be fairly general, right? And sort of theoretically achievable in most cases by most armies if piloted and you pay attention to them, right? Like, you shouldn't have to stretch too far. And then the other half are things you're going to have to reach for that de-incentivize certain bad guy Steve lists or whatever, that kind of thing. That those lists are that they could still achieve. I didn't want to lock anybody hard out, but that it's going to be harder for those lists to do. And I went round and round on this a lot. Like, I really did spend a lot of time. The thing I spent the most time on was making sure that the things were as under your control as they could be. That is to say, like, there's always going to be dice. There's always going to be what the other player does. But, like, I didn't write a scheme that was like, if your enemy charges with 3 units in a single round or 5 units in a single round or something like that, right? Because you never can guarantee that's completely out of your control. I can push units in the way and hope the enemy charges with everything, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you
can't be proactive in those types of schemes. Yeah,
I tried to, and there's a fine line here. Well, fine line is the wrong answer. There's a gray space here. There's a sort of DMZ, right? Because what is you tricking your opponent into doing something and what is you doing something can often be a little fuzzy, but I tried to make it at least fall 51% in your control. And hopefully I was successful there, but it's tough. That's the biggest line to walk.
In the draw, and Vince and I kind of talked about this in the distribution, we wanted 3 objectives. When you drew 7, we wanted 3 that would be fairly easy, that were somewhat gimme, like that you can assure that you're probably going to complete this. We wanted 2 that you'd have to fight for, but that everybody had a shot at least 2 of those. And then we wanted 2 that were going to be really hard for your list.
I think that was exactly reflective of the deck that I had.
And that was my draw as well. Like, when I drew 7, I had 3 I could do it with my eyes closed. I had 2 which were going to be tough. I actually had, let me rephrase that. I had 1 that I couldn't complete at all, 2 that were difficult, and then 1 that was going to be a rough. And so I figured I might get, I knew I'd get 3, I might get 4. I didn't think I would get 5 at all. I ended up getting closer to 5 than I anticipated. But that was, that was in the moment, the right place, the right time type of thing. But that was generally my experience as well, was 3-2-2 for most of my scenarios.
To what degree, so with the half of the deck that was intended to be challenging and not necessarily general purpose, to what degree did you guys in the design process orient those in reflection to try to smooth out tier 1, tier 2, to try to get more in that tier 2 sweet spot relative to those? Was that part of the process?
Vince, did we talk about specific lists?
We talked about specific types.
Yeah, we talked types. We didn't talk lists themselves, and so we would talk about, well, for example, a mixed destruction is going to struggle with this because they don't have the bodies for it.
Right. So we talked about, like, if you've got tier 1 lists that have a lot of shooting but need to stay out of melee range, right? Or so, like, you've got a Skyfire spam or low model count through big stompy impossible to kill monsters or stuff like that. Like, so hence pointing at like Stonehorns and Thunder Tusks. But there are other ways that you could that could play out, right? So as opposed to thinking of the specific list, more thinking of like the tools that those tier 1 lists tend to skew.
Because people commit to certain like suites of abilities, or I'm gonna probably in my next video that I'm gonna be doing is talking about the competitive, like the 4 kind of the 4 different categories of the competitive list, and the tool suites that we have within each of those 4 buckets, and the reality is that when you choose a list, you're often like consolidating in 2 to 3 of those buckets, and you're losing 1 of them, or you're severely limiting 1. Most lists aren't able to pull out of all 4, and what I would argue is the tier 1 list oftentimes are playing in all 4 buckets. They may not dominate all 4, but they at least have tools in all 4. And I think that what we talked about is we looked at tool sets. What tool sets do what lists have,
right.
And tried to aim at certain tool sets.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was some thought into why 19.
Well, there was actually 21. I think Dave decided he didn't like 2 of them, which is fine. I told him use whichever ones you like and don't like. So I'm sure he picked the 2 that were garbage and got rid of them. Because it's not like I'm not Rumpelstiltskin over here. That being said, I want to release this as a pack openly to everybody, and ideally I want to have 30.
Yeah.
That would be my best case world to live in. So,
and then let TOs assemble their own decks for their own events.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, have you thought much about to what degree does going up by 11 cards introduce a higher level of potential randomness, that is, in getting a higher concentration, not that kind of split that we talked about where we got 3 easy, etc. The 3-2-2 when you introduce a little more cards.
Yes, it's a concern, certainly, right? Especially if we don't. Theoretically, if you maintain the averages, it should still work out like that most of the time. But yeah, you introduce that risk, certainly. I think it's more valuable at the same time, because I think if you're pulling 7 per tournament, it would be nice to have that suite of 4 potentially completely different draws. That's what's in my head. So,
okay.
I think that variance is worth the risk.
Right. Interesting to see community crowdsourcing, inviting folks to contribute ideas and then pick some of the best, maybe a way of getting some engagement. You had me really passionate about these whole schemes. I was, just before we got on, thinking about potential schemes, and probably all these suck, but like I came up with 4 pretty quickly, and it's really fun. I can imagine you can get a lot of people just kind of
saying, man, this is exactly. This is why I love design, because when you get jazzed on one of those ideas and have it going, it's really good. Tom and I were working on magic items for the Mortarion thing, and I'm like, bam, this
we're spinning gold. Yeah, no.
Thing. I'm like, this is the magic item. It does this. It's gonna be sweet. So
my favorite one was, can you see the future? So
all right, I like where we're going. Good so far.
So beginning of the game, you must predict whether you will have more or fewer kill points by the end of round 2. And by the end of the game, however many rounds you get through, and you must be right for both rounds.
If you're right, you may reveal this scheme is successful.
Yes, you have to be right for both rounds. I haven't thought through that one in detail, but I love the idea of that kind of idea.
It should have like a Starseer feel to it, right? Yeah. Like that's what it like
a salon or
like a salon, like celestial realm, like There's probably
reading the omens.
Yes, I would tilt that toward. If I was going to, like, I love that idea. I'm stealing that right now. If I was going to write it, I would write it as kill more models than your opponent at the end of the second battle round, like more or less at the end of the second round, and more or less at the end of the game. Right? Because
you have to predict which one you're going.
You got to predict which one you're doing. Yes, exactly. Yes. More or less. And you got to decide at the beginning of the game and note it. And I like that a lot, because I think that is a fun thing to try to then. You both have to sort of prognosticate and look at the enemy army and figure out how easy their models are to put in the dirt. Right. And then you've got to actually make that happen.
Yep.
Right. So I think that's very cool. I dig that one. And it's very much under your control. Obviously the enemy have dice rolls. Nothing is 100% under your control. No part of this game is 100% under your control, but you're certainly in the driver's seat on that.
Mm-hmm. Another one was destroy, kind of related, destroy first, destroy last. You must destroy one enemy unit in the first round, and then at least one enemy unit in the last round. I don't feel as confident about that one, but that was another one. And just to quickly get through these, another one was guard duty. So you had
By the way, that one's actually called Alpha and Omega, but go ahead. Okay.
Oh, okay. Nice. And another one was guard duty. So guard duty is hero that you have to keep alive the entire game, and then you pick a hero that has to guard that hero and has to always stay within 3 inches of that hero. And maybe not, you have to keep that guard alive as well. I thought that would be a nice little spin on some of the ones.
The old bodyguard thing, yeah. Somebody's stuck there, yeah.
And then finally, the ritual is you have to pick a terrain piece, maybe not, outside of your deployment zone, where you have one of your heroes on that terrain piece for 3 consecutive rounds, and no friendly or enemy units within 3 inches of that, that vortex of that ritual that's taking place. So you always, you got to throw your branch witch up and put him on a terrain piece, and you're just keeping him there, and he's outside. I don't know. He's outside of harm's way. He's not doing anything in the game, and you got to try to kind of calculate not having any enemy units come within range, and you don't have any of your friendly units in range. So anyway, that was the other one.
I think that was basically the 20th or 21st scheme, because I think the wizard priest one got cut.
Okay.
And there is a ritual one that's about getting a spellcaster near a terrain piece that you've nominated and having them do crap for the game.
Yes, that was actually in the suite of.
You should just send me an email with those ideas. I'll steal them for you.
Awesome. That's fun, man.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, look, we have gone on for a while. This is a heck of a show, but this has been great. Like, this has been super fun. So we've clearly wandered far afield. Welcome to Warhammer Weekly, the tangent episode, which I love. This has been awesome. So I will close this out and say, Cale, Tyler, it was awesome. Next tournament, I'd like to play both of you. That would also be fun. Nash Con was great. It was awesome having you both on the show. Thank you both very, very, very much. Obviously, you're both welcome back anytime. All of you who watched, thank you. I hope if you find any of this interesting, like I said, I'll put out the scheme pack sometime soon. I mean, look at that. Boom. We got at least three more ideas right now. 3 more cards. We're ready to go. And we'll see what that happens. But to all of you who watched, thank you so much. Tyler, Cale, Tom, thanks as always. And for all of you, we'll see you next Wednesday.